The time has come. It is time
Yep.
to talk Batman. Batman is one of those characters that I really feel like it's like you in the mainstream. There's three. There's Superman, Spider Man, and Batman. Like those are the three that
Hmm.
like are universally known. That like no one is like, oh my god, what is that? Like, what are you talking about? Like those are the
You can
three that
show the picture to like a person in a third world country, and they know who Superman, Batman, and Spider Man are. Like pretty
exactly.
much. You show the logos, you show the picture of the character, whatever. They know what it is. Yeah, it's just one
Exactly.
of those
So
things.
we're lucky that we got a brand new Batman movie now that we started the
Hmm.
show. Obviously, No Way Home came out right around the time that we were about to start this, so we decided to not go there at least for the Spider-Man yet. But Batman is what we're doing. So before we start talking about the Batman,
Hmm.
if you're watching this because you clicked on the title and you want to see some Batman ranked, subscribe to the channel. We do this
Hmm.
every week. We rank stuff, filmographies, genres, franchises, etc. And also on the channel, we have movie trivia. So make sure you join the Facebook group. There will be movies, so you can sign up for those type of events and have some fun with us behind the scenes. So with all that out of the way, it is time to talk Batman. So where does Batman lie for you in terms of top tier superheroes?
It's probably honestly my number one. Like it's he's my superhero. Even though he's not technically super, he's not a mutated, superpowers and
Yeah,
super fast flying around, whatever. But it somehow is a little more interesting because there's been so many iterations of Batman, so many different interpretations. The fact that he is human, you can take him in many different directions. Being the guy who pushes himself to the limit, both physically and mentally, strives to be kind of the best of the best. It's a little more relatable than something like Superman, a guy from another planet, who has basically all the powers in the world. While I very much enjoy Superman and all the different interpretations of that, I think you can do more with the Batman character, as we've seen, and we'll talk about obviously in this ranking. You can have the very comical, over the top, Batman. You can have a little cartoon Batman. You can have a very, very dark noir detective Batman, as we just recently got. You can have more of an action hero Batman. You can have a gothic version. I mean, literally, the possibilities are endless, and even as we've seen in those DC animated films as well, the ones that kind of go straight to DVD, like all kinds of different Batmans at different eras, different periods, whatever. It's a fascinating character in that aspect, and the psychology of it, and everything about it. It's just interesting, which just makes it my favorite. It's been a favorite ever since I was a kid.
yeah. Batman's one of those where he's probably my number two. Like Spider Man's hands down my number one. So Batman, I
Mm,
would have to depend on my mood in terms of if I want to go primary hero or more like anti-hero, like Punisher
mm,
or Wolverine or one of those guys. But Batman is definitely really close, if not solidified my number two. I never was into comic books growing up. So the animated series, I for the '90s, I went Spider Man and that route. So
mm-hmm,
that was my introduction to the Batman in terms of fandom was honestly as I got older, really. The first one I saw in theaters, I honestly don't remember if I saw The Dark Knight in theaters. So it was either The
mm,
Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises, but it was for sure The Dark Knight Rises. I just can't remember if I saw The Dark Knight in theaters because I've just seen it so many times at this point now that I'm like, I just don't remember if I see it in theaters because
mm,
it's one of those where you think of the IMAX filmmaking and scenes where it's like,
mm-hmm,
did I see that in theaters or am I just like implanting it in my own head? So I was late to the picture with Batman, but it's one of those where it's he's oddly relatable because he's a billionaire. So it's like you don't relate to that aspect, but you relate to the tragedy and just the stuff that he's
mm-hmm,
been through and his his down to earth point of view and his like reasons behind why he's doing things. You know what I mean? The reason that
mm-hmm,
he wants to help people. Obviously he's not like a Robin Hood type of guy where he's not stealing from the rich and helping the poor, but you just feel like he's helping the needy in terms of Gotham
mm-hmm,
City is just dark, which there's different iterations of that within the movies that we'll get into. But he's one of those characters where it's like I don't know, just the fact that he's like you said, he's not superhero, he's just a hero, and he's
mm-hmm.
so awesome that he feels super. You know what I mean? That's a cool thing. So
Yeah.
Batman's one of those where it's like I said, he's not relatable in terms of like the billionaire aspect or obviously the actual crime fighting, but because he's human, you definitely can relate to him on that aspect. So Batman is always a fun topic to have with people. So I'm definitely curious to see how these rankings go and where the nostalgia is going to lie for you, where it's going to lie for me, if any at all. So yeah, I guess since we have a lot to go about, so let's break this down. We have 15 theatrically released
15.
movies. So
Yeah.
that is going to be all the 80s and 90s ones, all the Nolan, Batman 66, Mask of the Phantasm, Lego Batman. We included The Killing Joke because it had a short theatrical run, so we can just make it a nice 15. Both versions of Justice League, both the Justice League and Snyder Cut, since they're technically different movies as a whole, and Batman vs Superman. And we're going to use one cut, but we'll decide which one that we use in our ranking when we talk about that. So yeah, that is our 15 movies. So without further ado, I'm actually going to start today because I finally have the hottest take of them all.
Maybe you do, maybe we don't. We don't know each other's rankings, so who knows
You're not wrong,
who's going to have the hottest take? You never know.
In terms of the internet, yeah, it was my number 15, and I watched all these movies, either for the first time because there's two I hadn't seen, so for the first time or just for the millionth time, and I just wanted to see where it lies. So I watched all these and I wanted to compare them not only as Batman films, but as overall films and just for me as my taste. And number 15 is the only one that I purely hate. Batman Returns. I despise this movie, and it's been like this for years. I'm not a huge Tim Burton guy, just in and of itself. And everything about this movie is just gross. So I have so many pet peeves that go beyond just it's a comic book movie. It's just I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. Like everything with Selena Kyle, like I truly don't I have nothing against Michelle Pfeiffer as like a person or an actress. It's nothing about that, but just from that character, I just don't understand why people crown her the number one Catwoman by like a mile and like, oh, she's amazing and like hold her on a pedestal. Because it's so weird. Like she literally, licks herself even in her leather, like she's licking it, and it's just cartoony. She was revived by cats. All the cat puns and all that stuff. It's just I hate it. Everything that Danny DeVito as Penguin is doing is just over the top, and it's just wacky and weird and not even fun. Max Schreck, Christopher Walken's character, is just cartoonish as well, but the Gotham is not even the same Gotham that we had in Batman 89, because they always say this, the behind the scenes stuff, oh, Tim Burton was only going to come back if he got to do a Tim Burton movie, but you already set up a first one, so you already established this world. So the fact that it's not even like, it doesn't even feel like a sequel, it's I don't know, everything about it is just weird. Michael Keaton's fine as Batman as a whole, but I enjoy him more in Batman 89 than in this one. I just feel like he's just not really, there's not that layer that we'll get into later with 89 that, there's just missing in that. And the one only scene that I have always given it credit for, it's one of those where it's like, it's this scene that I'm about to mention, and then later when we eventually talk about Watchmen, spoilers, I hate that movie, but Watchmen, the scene with Rorschach, where he's like, I'm not in here with you, you're in here with me. So I always compare that scene is within a movie I hate, was the first time that Bruce and Selena realize that whose each other's identities are, and they're like,
the mistletoe shit.
Yeah, like, should we fight now? And there's like that weird, awkward sexual chemistry. That's like that's a really good scene. Like that's handled. Like that's like that doesn't feel like anything else in the entire movie, because that scene is so grounded and it has such a lot of heart and emotion to it. So this is just a movie that I've literally never liked. I've given it multiple chances, and it just does not work for me. And I decided to go last because I have a personal hatred for this, but also there's some redeemable stuff in the next two that, although I do have them as negative scores, I still can watch them. Whereas I've literally only watched this to give it a second chance or for rankings. So Batman Returns is just a personal hatred. I still give it 2 stars just because it's Batman. So at least there's things within Batman have it, and that one scene. But it's like, it probably should be lower, but sometimes I don't want to be over dramatic with my hatred. So it's still 2 stars, but it is definitely my least favorite by a mile. So that is my number 15, and I have a feeling you will talk about that later.
Well, not too much later, just to spoil it. I'm not as high on Batman Returns either, so we'll talk about it maybe a little sooner. I have it a little bit higher, but only because I have I don't know, hatred's a strong word, but my 10 through 15 are kind of they're just the ones I'm most kind of blah about, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I can watch them, get things out of it. Put them on. They're entertaining enough, but they're not ones I go back to a lot and that I'm super passionate about, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like my bottom 5 or 6. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I go. They're all kind of like 2.5 star kind of movies. Yeah, same as you, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Shout out Malcolm in the chat. He agrees that it's his least favorite of the '90s one. So hey, at least I got something in common with someone.
I might spoil it and say it might be my least favorite of the '90s ones too, but I'll show you where I rank it very soon. So yeah. I'll talk a little bit more about it from my angle when we get there. But my 15 might be a hot take too. I don't know. I can't really get a gauge on how popular it is. It's a movie that gives me a literal migraine when I watch it, just because of the style and the fact that I just can't handle how ADHD and frenetic it is. That's the Lego Batman movie.
Wow.
I've tried to watch this movie 3 times and I can't get into it. I don't like the animation style. It's just so jumpy and so just hyper. It's made for like 6-year-olds. Look, I've tried to watch it. Like, the first 10 minutes of this movie is like literal headache inducing. Like, it's just like, it's all over the goddamn place. It's flashing lights. It's 8,000 characters smashing into the screen. It's like literally somebody throwing all their toys around on the screen. I can't catch a lick of dialogue without the subtitles. And then, it slows down a little bit later, but by then I'm kind of already checked out. I think the Lego Batman character worked way better in the Lego movie as a supporting character. Like his little bit parts that he had in the Lego movie, I think were fun because he would just kind of pop in and out, drop a couple of fun lines, fly the bat plane for a little bit, and kind of in and out of the movie when he's not like the main focus. The Will Arnett thing just gets a little. It just gets old, and the fact that this movie's like an hour and 50 minutes just bugs the shit out of me. Like, this movie should be like 80 minutes tops, like 80 fucking minutes tops. I really don't. I appreciate some of the meta humor. Like some of the jokes are okay. And I think this movie works better like in pieces. Like if I was to watch like scenes of it on YouTube or something, but like as a movie, I can't roll with this. I don't like the Lego Batman movie that much. So that may be my hot take of the evening. So yeah. Yeah. I told you I'd have the hotter take. You're not. I told you I always have the hottest ones.
Yeah. Wow. That is definitely shows that Austin is anti-animation in any facet of it. Like okay.
Yeah. I'm anti-current animation. I've completely checked out on animated movies. Like the last couple of years, I'm just kind of done with them. Because I'm turning 36 this month, and I don't have kids. And my sister just had a kid who I'm gonna introduce movies to at some point, but we're sticking with like 90s movies, 80s movies, early 2000s, like the good stuff. I can't do these movies anymore unless I have a reason to. I'm just checked out on them. They're so frantic and they just can't sit still and tell a story. I'm just kind of done with them at this point. And this one, right. But it's funny. I own the Blu-ray. It's right over there, so I'm stuck with it. I bought it.
You're also stuck with the Stars Born, so I feel like
I'm stuck with the Stars Born. So that's like it's what I do. It's in the collection now. What am I gonna do?
So if you had to pick one to rewatch right now, Stars Born or Lego Batman, go.
Stars Born. I'll watch Stars Born.
Jesus. Okay. That's a hot take.
Yeah.
All right. And I love Stars Born way more, but I just know that you don't like that one. So the fact that you're picking that over Lego Batman,
because I'll at least watch Bradley Cooper just be a drunken mess in that, and and the music's not horrible. So I would sit down and watch that movie. At least it doesn't give me a headache. Like that movie, like it's like that, and the last movie before that, they literally gave me a migraine. Two movies that gave me a migraine were not necessarily say the movie's bad, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse gave me a headache in the theater. Like the actual animation gave me a headache. So maybe I'm just getting old, and I'm just getting motion sickness in some of these movies. And then I'm getting old, and then Independence Day Resurgence gave me the worst migraine I've ever had in a movie theater in my life. Like that movie is both how painfully bad it was and how just horrendously made it was. So yeah, there you go.
Well, my number 14 doesn't give me a headache. It's actually kind of fun, but it's really terrible. So the reason I rank this one over Returns is simply because
I think I know where you're going.
I quote it a lot. Like let's be real. You know what I mean? Like I there's no ifs, ands, or but about it. Like it's just it's so bad that it's kind of good. Batman and Robin. Like it's not a good movie. Like let's just be real. It's not a good movie. The first 30 minutes, other than the editing, where it goes to the butts and the bat nipples and stuff like that, it's actually kind of fun. Like it really sets up the world. Like it does a good job. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, his performance in this movie at least has some weight to it in terms of like diabolical, like Bond villain type of thing, that it makes sense that it's like what his plan is, whereas the difference between like a Batman Returns with the whole sewer things, the kidnapping, the orphans or the kids or whatever, the only sons and all that stuff. It's just, I don't know. That one makes me feel icky. This one just makes me feel awkward that I'm watching some scenes, but I laugh at a lot of it. Like, you know, there's something like, you know, Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy, like Bane, like there's elements of the moment in the movie where I'm just like, yes, that could be better. Yes, the writing could be better. Yes, that I wish this was a little more.
But do you want it to be better? Because it's kind of the charm of the movie is that it's so bad that it's you kind of love it while you're watching it. It's definitely a drinking movie, man. You put a couple of beers and you watch this movie, and you're gonna have a good time with some friends or something. You put this movie and have a blast. Look,
take a drink every time there's an ice pun.
I will spoil it where it is on my list, but because of the guilty pleasure aspect, it's not number one. But it's a little bit. You might be surprised how high it is overall, just because of the guilty pleasure aspect. When I was looking at this list of how much enjoyment I get out of it, despite how horrendous it is, I'll just say that. So I'll talk about it later. But yeah, I and I can't really blame like Schwarzenegger for what he's doing. He's doing what's scripted. It's the Akiva Goldsman script, which he's an Academy Award winning writer, I think, and yet people forget he wrote Batman and Robin. Like he wrote all those puns, like he wrote all this shit, and like and you know, and he's doing what he's told.
I don't even think they're ironically fun. The puns are actually fun, like that. That's not the issue. It's just
no. I don't have that issue. I'm just saying when people blame Schwarzenegger, he's doing exactly what he was told, and he's doing what the performance he was told to give. He was told to give a cartoony, over the top performance, and he's doing exactly what he was asked of him. And you know, we don't see a lot of serious moments. I do think he has one decent serious dramatic moment in the movie. I'll say that there's one dramatic moment where he's well the stuff with his wife in particular, when he's in Arkham Asylum and he's sitting there and he carves the little statue, for the little spinning thing, and he's looking at it, and a single tear falls from his eye and like freezes on his face, and he's just giving this look at it, like he'll never see her again. And it's the one thing where you're like, okay, the dude can act when he wants to, and when this movie wants to be serious, it can, and then it completely goes into nonsense again. But like you can see where they could have a nugget of something there, and it just went in the complete opposite direction.
And the other reason that this is 14 is because you got to remember that this is Batman that we're ranking here, not DC, not other things. You know what I mean? So George Clooney just doesn't work as Batman or even as Bruce Wayne. Like you can just tell that he wasn't there yet in his acting career, which is ironic because just a couple years later he's Danny Ocean with all the charm in the world. And I never watched ER, but I heard he was like really, good.
The year before, From Dusk Till Dawn, Seth Gecko. He's a bad motherfucker in that movie. He's awesome.
But the difference with that is you have Tarantino's writing behind it that really it's just different. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like I feel like he just wasn't ready for especially at the time, superhero movies weren't as serious, which is ironic because the first two Batman movies within this four were super serious in terms of tone, at least, or dark or whatever. And then they went the whole, toy, pop era superhero, however you want to phrase it. So it's just a weird time, and I feel like I don't think anyone was on the same page in terms of what they were making. So he's just the least memorable Bruce Wayne, like, and he's and Batman, like, he's not iconic regardless of where I'm going to rank the Batman 66, because I didn't grow up with like Adam West Batman, but you can tell for the era at least they had a plan of what they were doing. In this one, there's just no plan. So everything that's missing, and then the relationship between him and Robin is not as good as you get in Forever, which, I don't know exactly where that's going to rank for me, but it's just a different plot line. It's just so weird. Similar to what I just said about Batman 89. It's like you forget that the one right before it already established some stuff, and it's just, I don't know, it's like they did a lot of drugs in the 90s when they were making these movies and going back to back to back. So number 14 is Batman and Robin. No one's surprised about that. They might be more surprised where it ranks on you, depending on where it's at. But
we'll see.
no one's surprised about that. So what is your 14?
I'm sure the comments section will eviscerate me as we go. That's fine. I'm prepared for it. And it's nothing new as far as this show, as you found out over pretty much every episode. So my number 14 is one I watched for the first time. For this one, that just didn't do almost anything for me. That's Batman: The Killing Joke. Batman: The Killing Joke just fell flat. Look, I went back after I watched the movie, read a little bit of the comic stuff. I kind of flipped through some pages online, a digital version. It works in there. I just feel like this movie is a little misguided. It doesn't really get the point of the comic. And here's the thing. I adore Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, as Batman and the Joker, respectively. Like, they're great. And I know that they specifically lobby for it. I know Mark Hamill said, if you ever do Killing Joke, please let me do the Joker. And, like, that's awesome. I'm glad he's passionate about it. I just think the movie is just weird. This movie just, it doesn't click. It drags. It takes like forever to even bring the Joker into the story. I don't really like the backstory of the Joker, just him being like this goofy comedian who, like, his wife just dies out of nowhere and then he just snapped. Like, it just didn't click. I kind of more prefer, for the most part, I say there's some exceptions, especially with one of my higher movies, but a more unknown Joker, where he's just kind of the Joker. And I just think, like, all the stuff with Barbara is strange, where, everybody talks about, like, the thing, like, the sex scene is just, it's out of nowhere and it's weird. And it's like, like, sexually frustrated Batgirl and Batman. It's just awkward. And I don't want to, I just feel icky when I'm watching it. Like, I don't want to watch this movie again. And it just, not much really worked for me. So yeah, The Killing Joke, I watched it for the first time. And look, a lot of those DC animated movies, like I said, are pretty good. Most of them are pretty spot on. But this one, I remember seeing the reviews for it when it came out too, and people went to see it on the Fathom events and were not into it. And so I went into it. I didn't know what to expect, but yeah, it just didn't do anything for me. Falls flat and just left me kind of cold. So yeah.
So that's my number 13. So
okay.
I'll just add on to what you're saying. So this movie, I wrote this in my Letterboxd review. This movie is too disjointed extensions of, like, the animated series in theory. Like, they're not actually, but the way that they're written, it's the first half is just a Batgirl Batman story with a different storyline with the villain of Paris France and Batgirl's obsession / crush on Batman and Batman's father figure, like big brother type of deal. So the fact that he, like, actually succumbed to her sexual advance and was able to use, especially ironically around the time this was made, around the era of all that stuff, that's like, it's just
right,
regardless of which role is which, the fact that there's any type of, like, that going on, it's just icky in general, let alone around the time that you just remember, like, oh, that was right around that time when all that stuff came out. So it's just not, and it's never, I mean, obviously she's an adult, but it's never established how old she is, so you just clearly know that he's older and she's way younger, so that's also weird. And she's just a whiny brat, and she she does some decent stuff, but, like, you could just tell that they don't have a full story there, so they literally used a mini episode for part 1, and then they transferred it over to part 2 3 years later, I think it tried to say, and then Batman is just doing his own thing, and then all of a sudden, I'm gonna go visit the Joker, like, for what? Like, he just visits Joker and then he breaks out. Like, it's nothing about the story. Like, I feel like this movie had pages ripped out of the script from, like, here or there, you skipped a page, you skipped a page there, you skipped a page there. I actually didn't mind the Joker backstory, not because I needed it, just because if you're going to do it, at least make it interesting. I felt like it was an interesting story where it's not initially he wasn't trying to be bad, he was just so desperate, and then he just got pushed into mania. I feel like there's more that could have been done with to actually go to the actual mania aspect. Like once he falls into the vat and he turns into the Joker. All of a
I
sudden,
feel like they just kind of jumped to Crazy Joker. There's nothing in between. Like there's no progression to it. You just jump from the guy skin changes color and he kind of looks himself in the thing, and then we just jump and he's psychotic, paralyzing Barbara Gordon, Joker, and it's just like I where was the in between for that? Where's the progression? We're missing a reel or something. Like I don't know where it goes.
But the reason, because I'll have to establish this at least for I think 2 more. Why they're above Batman Returns, just because that's the the one that's my hot take, quote unquote. But I will say that Mark Hamill's Joker, at least voice wise, feels like what pretty much an extended version of what he'd been doing. And then Kevin Conroy being back, you can hear that Batman. You know what I mean? He actually is a good Batman still. Like the story is crap and the movie's not great, but there's elements of it where like, man, I wish there's something that could have been here. You know what I mean?
I wish they were in a better movie. Yeah,
exactly. You know what I mean? Whereas in everything in Batman Returns, I'm like, I just don't like any of this. Take all of this out, and I can just be good without it. So that's why.
I mean, luckily they have been. I mean, the whole animated series is great. You know what I mean? You get a lot of that in the actual animated series. Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, I think, have a better dynamic in the Arkham games, like in Arkham City. A lot of their cinematic stuff back and forth. In the Arkham City game, like they did both the voices for that. Mark Hamill has better stuff to do in that game with like the dying Joker. The one that's kind of rotting away and dying in that game, and Conroy having this weird relationship with him in that movie. I feel like all their stuff, they do better stuff in the games, and other animated movies. This is just kind of on the lower end of that sort of dynamic for them.
Yeah. So what is your 13?
My 13 is Justice League, the Justice League Joss Whedon cut. Initially, when I saw it, I knew about all the issues and problems, so I kind of set my expectations low. I found it entertaining enough, but it was a weird thing to where it's this big movie with the Justice League, and I found myself, I didn't go back to it for like years. Like I didn't go back and watch it again for like 2-3 years, which you'd think a movie like this, I would have revisited it as soon as it came out. I would have seen it a second time in the theater, and I didn't. And when I went back and finally watched it again, I was like, this is a broken movie. It's just a broken film. Like you just feel like there's things missing. There's just almost no character development at all, especially obviously from what we would see with the longer cut, of Cyborg and Flash and all those guys. Even just looking at the Batman aspect of it, I adore Ben Affleck as Batman, but he's given almost nothing to do in this version of it. He's just kind of around using his tech for a couple of fights, and he transports everybody at the end, and they just have a bland fight, and all that stuff at the end is just bland, where they're just moving people and moving buildings. It's just like, what are we doing? The color scheme is bad. It just feels like a unfinished broken opportunity, which it was. I mean, this is the version that it's the shorter one, and it's the thing that just cut everything out and gutted it. And so I mean, I can still enjoy certain moments. The stuff where they're fighting the revived Superman is still fun. There's fun moments throughout the thing. But yeah, I mean, I just slightly would watch it over, stuff like Killing Joke or Lego or whatever. But that's just because it's just a slightly, it just has better moments or whatever. So the Justice League Joss Whedon version it's just unfinished. There's a reason why I'm glad we got the Snyder cut for what we did. So it just doesn't really work.
There you go. For me, my number 12 is going to be Batman Forever. And the first time I watched this, I think my expectations were so low that I was like blown away. I'm like, yo, this is kind of awesome. But when I went back and watched it, I still like it. Now we're all into my positive ones. Like the bottom 3 are all my negatives. These are all my positive 3 stars. Like for the next couple, but it's still positive because it's watchable. Because I actually really like Val Kilmer's both Batman and Bruce Wayne. Like I like it. It's one of those where, especially coming off of Keaton, where it's like I'm not like attached to him nostalgia wise. So it's like when I compare the two, I'm like I really dig what Val Kilmer's doing. But I will admit that both the Riddler and Two-Face are just knock off Jokers essentially. Like they're not even like their own characters. You know what I mean? Like the Riddler, like I like Edward Nygma, like his actual like backstory of like he's just trying to be an inventor. He's just trying to get into, you know, he works for Bruce Wayne, and he's really trying to like get, you know, his inventions out there. But then once he just gets you know, turned away, which that's one of those storylines that, you know, that we get that, you know, we've had that before and we've had it since. So it's like it's understandable, but it's like he's just so like
Yeah, but it's
diabolical
weird
and
because he
manipulative.
doesn't get turned away. Bruce goes, hey, I'm gonna look into this. I'm just a very busy man. Please set
Yeah,
something up, and I will come take a look at it. You know
he's
what I
just not
mean? And
patient. Yeah,
I have more questions. He's just not, you know, yeah, he's not
yeah, he
patient
literally
enough.
said, "I
And
need to
oh, I
know
need an
now."
answer right now. And it's like, bro, that's not how this works. Like, I
No,
can't just give you, you know, millions of dollars in funding right now. Like, I need to know more information. So he doesn't blow him off. He sits there and hears his pitch and says, we'll talk about it later.
you
And
know
yeah,
what it was?
it's just strange.
You
Yeah.
actually, I think I know what it was. Edward Nygma watched Batman '89, and he heard that Bruce
Mhm.
gave a grant to the reporter after, you
Oh,
know,
just for asking?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
right.
think that's what it was. Like, this
Give
is how
Knox a
this works.
grant. Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's one of those where it's like,
You gave that dopey reporter a grant. I can't get one for my 3D TV. Yeah, okay.
like I kind of
Yeah.
hinted earlier when I was talking about Batman and Robin. I really like the setup of Robin. You know, his character, like
Mm.
everything with his family. You know, the Graysons and just their peril and how he becomes an orphan, and kind of it's one of those where it's like, okay, so rich guys essentially just buy people. Like essentially that's how he adopted him. He's like, I want him.
Yeah.
You
It's
know what I
like,
mean? It's like,
wait a minute. How old is Robin in this movie? He says Dick Grayson, college student. What is he, 20, 21? You
yeah,
know, and
he's
he's
not
just
even
adopting a
adopted.
21-year-old.
He just
Like, what are you
rents
doing?
him out
Like,
the
what are we
room.
doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So other than some of those, you know, logical leaps, the actual
Mhm.
storyline between the characters is really good. And I love
Right.
the angst of O'Donnell's like performance in there because of course he's bitter. You know what I mean? He just went through, you know, his whole family just dying and, you know, everything, and then he just shows, all right, well, I have nothing else. I'm gonna join you. You know what I mean? And it's one of those where it makes
Mhm.
sense. Where it's like, you know, it's there's something there that really works. Chase Meridian's character is not, I don't want to say pointless, but at least it's kind of fun. Like the chemistry there, like it's just, I don't know, it's kind of sexy. Like it's like I could do without you. Take it out.
She's definitely the horniest character in any of these movies. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
you know what I mean.
And I will say that Nicole Kidman, this is her hottest movie she's ever done. Like she
That's what
looks
I'm saying.
amazing in this movie. Like she looks
Exactly.
incredible in this movie.
So,
So
like,
I
obviously, we
can't
could
blame
take her
her.
out of the movie and like be
Yeah, yeah,
totally fine, but having
yeah.
her there, like, it's like I'm not complaining.
Mm,
And then, like I said, Riddler and Two Face are just doing the exact same thing. I don't mind
mm.
one of them being a Joker ripoff because it's like whatever, sure. But both of them now now that's really you're like, why do we have two villains? You know what I
See,
mean?
but
Now,
that's on Tommy Lee Jones. That's on
yeah,
Tommy Lee Jones because he tried to out buffoon
yeah, exactly.
outdo Jim Carrey, which he was not really told to do. He just kind of started doing it, and he at the time Tommy Lee Jones was coming off an Oscar win, and he
Yeah,
was on top of the world, and it's like could just do whatever they want. They couldn't tell him no. And because he saw what Jim Carrey was doing, he's like, "Oh, well, I'll just be more over the top than he is," and it doesn't work for that character. That's not what that character is. It's a
yeah,
complete like Jim Carrey's at least doing. He's doing Frank Gorshin from the
yeah,
66. Like he's just doing a more exaggerated version of Frank Gorshin because
exactly.
he was always hopping around and laughing and being silly. So I'm somewhat okay with that.
Yeah,
But the Harvey Two Face character, he's supposed to be like this like troubled guy who literally hangs every decision he makes off these coins, and you know
yeah,
he has those moral conundrums. Like he shouldn't be hopping around, you know, doing jumping jacks, like all, you
exactly.
know, just being silly. Like it's just like, what are we doing? Like that doesn't make any sense at all.
So there's also two issues with this. Like you just said, he's coming off his Oscar. So I would and I just rewatched The Fugitive the other day. I would love Tommy
Mhm.
Lee Jones from The Fugitive, like that. Oh, I don't care if he
Oh
just
yeah,
did
like
that
a
same exact
straightforward
character.
character.
That's
Yeah,
that same exact character. You know, hey, Batman, I need to save the day. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like that's
yeah.
like I don't care, and then flip the
Well,
coin. It's not up to
and
me.
I could see him playing Harvey Dent. He did a movie the year before this, The Client, the John Grisham thing,
Yeah,
where he plays like this kind of Southern, you know, prosecutor lawyer kind of a guy, you know, and so you could see him transitioning that into like a Harvey Dent type thing.
yep,
And if most of the movie had just been him being Harvey Dent and a little bit of Two Face at the end or something, I think it could have worked because you could have had Tommy Jones just being him, you know, and like I would because put yourself back in the mindset of 1994 when this movie's coming out, and you're reading magazines, and Oscar winner Tommy Lee Jones is going to be Harvey Dent Two-Face. Like, as a comic book fan, you're probably like, wow, like, holy shit, like they got Tommy Lee Jones is going to play Two-Face, like. Sweet, like that guy can act. He can act his ass off. Like, all right, cool. And then you see like this movie, and you're just like, wait, what? Like, what are you doing, dude?
So what we really got is Tommy Lee Jones playing Two-Face as the Joker, pretending to be
Riddler.
No, pretending to be Jim Carrey's Riddler. It's like
right, yeah. It's so weird.
So and then the other thing I want to shout out, Coy Jandreau. I saw this. I was watching him and the Real Rejects just talk about Batman, and I don't know if people forget. Billy D. Williams was Harvey Dent.
Yes, it was supposed to be. That's why he signed up for that movie. Was in the sequel. He was supposed to be give him a chance to play Two-Face, and I believe, from what I remember, he still got paid for Batman Returns, even though they never used him. He got a paycheck because he had a contract for 2 movies, so he got paid to not be in the movie. But yeah, it's so weird. They almost like pulled a reverse thing where they got rid of the black guy, cast a white guy, and it's like you kind of
90s were wild, man.
Yeah, man. It's these movies are so crazy, but there's never been anything like them, though. I mean, I say what you will, but there's never been movies quite as unique as them. I actually do like the. I will say that it's a little bit higher on my list. We'll get to it soon, but the Elliot Goldenthal score I think is actually pretty good. I actually really liked it. Even the main. The Batman theme, it fits the movie. The dun 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 dun. It kind of fits the movie.
Nice too. Like
it fits the name of the movie.
Yeah. It has Batman stuff in it. That's why it's higher for a Batman movie for me. But that's my number 12. What's your number 12?
Okay, my number 12 is Batman 66, Batman the movie. So I really like. I'm actually a big fan of the actual TV show. I have the big Blu-ray box set over on my shelf over there, the big giant box set. I like the TV show a lot, especially if you can just vibe with it and get into it. Like it's a lot of fun. I just think the movie's kind of unnecessary. It just feels like 4 episodes just kind of strung together. You can literally see in this movie where they would put the commercial breaks when you watch it. I mean, watch the movie, and I'll give you a perfect example. They're doing their opening stuff. They're going around, and the first commercial break is when they get magnetized to the buoy and the missiles coming at them. And commercial break. Will the dynamic duo escape this situation? Tune in next time. And you cut to the next episode. Adam West going, "Oh, thank God for that brave dolphin," throwing himself in front of the torpedo. And the next one to be like, them about to crash the helicopter, all that kind of stuff. Like you can see the little commercial breaks in this one, and that's pretty much why I just feel like it's unnecessary. I like the series, I like it a lot, but this one it's just a couple of episodes strung together. And yeah, I mean, no, and that's the thing. I like that the movie has all 4 of the main villains from the show. I mean, I love Cesar Romero. Burgess Meredith is great. I've cosplayed as Burgess Meredith's Penguin from this series multiple times. I adore him as the Penguin. Frank Gorshin's fun, and the Catwoman's fun. Like all that stuff is fun. I can put it on and enjoy it for what it is. But take breaks. If I were to I could take a breaks like a TV show. Like I see the thing coming, I stop it. Go get a drink. And it's like, okay, here comes episode number 2, and in this movie, and just do it like that. So it's entertaining enough, but it's just kind of an unnecessary movie, and it feels like a TV show just kind of cobbled together in a movie. So that's the only reason it's kind of low on 12. I like the TV show a lot, but this movie just is what it is.
There you go. I mean, that's a lot of fun. I'll talk about it in a second, but
sure.
I'll go to my number 11 because you just talked about it. That's Justice League. I just want to point out 2 things here. The one, I want to elaborate a little more the Superman revival scene, just the actual editing and just the laser focus and the concept when Flash is like, "Oh, I'm gonna get him," and then the eye goes.
He turns to him when in mid run.
Spoiler for eventually we're gonna do a Superman because I finally bought all those, so we can do that easily. But so I've never been a big Superman guy. Man of Steel is a movie that's gone up. Not much, but it's gone up. So my Henry Cavill, and obviously I haven't talked about BVS yet, so clearly I don't hate it. So Henry Cavill's grown on me as a Superman, but Superman as a character as a whole hasn't been, big on me. I never watched any of the TV shows. I didn't read the comics, and I'm super late to the Christopher Reeve stuff. So Superman's never been quote unquote my guy. But that was a scene there where I'm like, that's a Superman thing. Like there, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
the light, like the fact he's able to match the Flash, like that was cool. And then my favorite scene, which is actually bums me out because this wasn't in the Snyderverse, the Snyder cut. The scene where Aquaman is sitting on the lasso and he's just pouring his heart out, and
Right. Yeah,
he's just so vulnerable and he's just so, you know what I mean? It's like, and then after he sits on, he's like, "Oh man, I didn't mean none of that stuff." It's like, "Oh come on, that's fun." That's the type of humor that it's like it's situational humor where it's like within the storyline.
well, and you can see when Joss added a couple of those lines. There's another line that's not in the Snyder cut where he's like, Aquaman's like, well, honestly, I think we're all just about to die. I think we're all going to go in this fight. We're all going to come out and then we're going to die. Like that's not even in the Snyder cut either because it takes it a little more seriously. But I mean, I enjoy a couple of comedic. There's one Batman quote that's not in the Snyder cut that is in this one that I do appreciate. It's when Flash is confronting him and he's saying, I don't know what to do here. I've never I just push people out of the way. Like I've never done anything. He goes, just save somebody. Just save one person. Just that's all you gotta do. Like just one person at a time. Just save somebody. Like that's what I do.
That's a good that's a good Batman moment too. Not just from a writing perspective. That's just a good Batman thing where it's like, because like you said, this is the Justice League. So Batman, realistically doesn't have much to do. Let's just be real. So the fact that he can be rich, he can essentially sponsor this team, and he can provide human moments like that, like because Flash, he's still a kid, even though he's metahuman, he's still a kid. So it's at least you can like provide that father figure, and especially we get more into the Snyder cut of like his backstory with his dad, but you can tell it goes together. So yeah, that would have been a nice scene to have in somewhere else. But so the Justice League movie, it's one of those where it's watchable, but it's just, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like it's not offensive. The opening scene's really awkward with the music and the fighting the parademons.
The everybody knows. Like that's weird. Yeah.
So that was probably my favorite thing cut out of the Snyder cut because that was just, Oh yeah, so I guess Malcolm knows for sure because Snyder didn't shoot that himself. That was all a Whedon scene. So so that makes sense. But yeah, so Justice League, it's not offensible, but it's the only offense that it has is the fact that it wasn't better. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, you're the Justice League. You need to be better. Like this is not as good as like Age of Ultron, but it's one of those where it's like Age of Ultron gets dissed on just because it's not as good as the Avengers. You know what I mean? And that's the same thing. Like it's not good. This movie isn't good, but it's worse in people's eyes because it's not amazing. So it's just one of those where it's just like take the name off it and just have it a superhero movie, and it's like, all right, whatever, it's a throwaway one, but people hate it because of it's not the best thing ever. So I'm gonna jump real quick and I'm gonna go to my number 10 because that is also Batman 66. I just wanted to double up there.
That's fine. That's fine.
The one thing I want to say is the reason that I think that the villains thing work is because guess what? They're all not trying to do their own thing. They're just working as a team to like go against Batman and Robin. You know what I mean? They're not like over complicating the plot. It's literally just a gang of guys like, what do we do? Like they're hanging out at that bar and they're just, in their back room. You know what I mean? That's just fun.
You know and they're just like, okay, well, when she distracts him by this, he'll come over to my platform that'll shoot him out the window over to the exploding penguins and it'll blow him up out there. Like they're trying to like work together and figure out. It's a goofy plan, but at least they're like working together. And all the dehydration stuff is weird and it doesn't make any sense. But then again, it's Batman 66. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's silly. It's silly, but
even though I missed it in the Batman trivia, I came in second. I don't know if you were able to watch it, but I came in second.
Yeah, I watched it.
But so even though I missed the Kit Kat thing, that whole scene that's real fun. You know what I mean? Like everything going there, like that's just a lot of fun.
That was one thing I heard that Adam West, when they said they were going to do a movie, the only thing he requested is have a few more scenes as Bruce Wayne, which you don't get to see a lot of in the series. Most of the series, he's running around as Batman for 80% of the episode. You get a little bit usually of Bruce Wayne.
Pattinson?
And so you always get in the series like a lot of the episodes are the same. You open with Bruce and Dick kind of doing some kind of activity. They get a call from Commissioner Gordon. They go downtown, get the mission for the episode. You know what I mean? Like you get a little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end, and that's all you get of Bruce Wayne. So he wanted to have chance to have almost like some romantic scenes, kind of, act a little bit outside of the suit, which I understand, because he's got charisma, he's a handsome dude. He's got some charisma in the movie, and those scenes are some of the better scenes in the movie. I will say it's something we don't get in the show a lot. So I do appreciate those type of scenes. It's just kind of it's just kind of a movie, like I said, that's just kind of there.
Yeah.
It's not bad, it's not great. It's just there, and it's fine.
I judged it as knowing what it was at the time instead of
Hmm.
comparing it to movies of today. And with that said,
Hmm.
it's a fine movie of the time. It's like it's not
Yeah.
offensive. It's just a fun little thing that I bet my great 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 grandpa would have enjoyed back in the day. It's just that. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it was just a fun
back
time.
in
Like
back in 1662. Yeah, right.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun time, and I actually, and it could have been the same thing as when I watched Batman Forever the very first time. My expectations were so low that I watched it, and I didn't hate myself after watching them. It probably raised, but it's still a 3-star movie. It's my last of 3 stars. I will spoil that, but
Okay.
yeah, so that is my number 12. Let's go to your number, or in my number 10. Your
Okay,
number 11.
so
So you'll go
my
ahead.
number 11 might be the other one I piss people off with, which is fine. Besides the Lego Movie, so that'll be Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, which I
Animated.
rewatched, And look, I remember having fond memories of this one, and then going back to it this time. And I want to preface this by saying, I think Batman the animated series with Kevin Conroy, with Mark Hamill, all that, is one of the great animated series of all time. This movie feels cheap. This movie feels cheap. There it drags. There's the stuff with him and Angela is not interesting, and this movie did not hold up nearly as well as I thought it would when I went back to it. And this movie just dragged ass for me. Like and again, the only thing really keeping me up is when we did get those scenes with classic Mark Hamill Joker doing his thing, interacting with kind of the gangster guys. You know exactly, and I didn't even remember exactly, but within 5 minutes I remember that, oh yeah, the girl's the Phantasm. You know that within the first 5 minutes if you're not a dummy. Like there's no mystery to it like whatsoever. Oh, she just happens to be in town, and all of a sudden there's this Phantasm guy around. Okay, it just. It's just it takes forever. Some of the year one stuff is okay with him running around as a vigilante with like a ski mask on. It's kind of interesting, but they don't really do enough of it. And I just don't think this movie holds up as well. It looks cheap, it feels cheap, and I would just rather watch a good 2-part or 3-part, animated series episode. Honestly, they did way better stuff on the show than this. They could have adapted. So it felt the weakest. It was the most disappointing coming back to it. I'll put it that way.
You got
Most
Malcolm on your
disappointing movie
side.
coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. I will definitely be talking about that later. So I'll let you double up, and what's your number 10?
Okay, my number 10 is one you talked about earlier. I'm at Batman Returns on this one, so Batman Returns is my number 10. I appreciate this movie more as a 90s Tim Burton movie than as a Batman movie because, A, Batman's only in like a third of it. It's Batman Returns, kinda. And the rise of Oswald Cobblepot and the
Yeah.
Catwoman, because that's definitely what Tim Burton is way more interested in this movie, is that dark carnival weird circus stuff in this movie. He's way more interested in that. He's way more interested in exploring these animalistic characters. Like he's way more into that creature stuff, which I get. I mean, it's Tim Burton, that's what he's into, so that's fine. But yeah, he doesn't give a shit about Batman in this movie.
I think
Batman just kind of fades in and out.
if the style of Returns was the first one, then I would not have as less problem. Like I said, they already
It's so
established the
different.
world.
It feels different. Yeah, it feels way different. This one feels,
Not
the other
cohesive,
one
the
the other one
franchise.
was shot on it was shot at Pinewood, like the first one, the '89, in London, which is like this massive studio. They shot like the Aliens movies and all that kind of stuff, so like it feels big. And then this
Yeah.
one was shot like at a much small. It feels like a very small soundstage. Like that opening in that town square, like feels like a block of some soundstage, and it feels
Yeah.
small. Like it doesn't feel like Gotham. It just has a strange, different feel to it. It doesn't feel like the same city, even though it's supposed to be a continuation. Yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff in here. I mean, I love that iconic shot when they first call Batman and he's like sitting in his cave, and then like the spotlights like shine on him. It's cool. Like there's some good stuff like going on there. I do think Danny DeVito is definitely having fun with it. I kind of get into some of his stuff. I like the fact that he's kind of a half animal creature. Like that's kind of fun. But yeah, like Christopher Walken's just being Christopher Walken. He's not really. He could do this role in his sleep.
With some weird
And
teeth.
yeah, and Michelle Pfeiffer, it's just she's not like a cat burglar Catwoman. She's just this
She's
weird,
a meta
like I'm
cat
a
human.
half. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a more straight version. I don't even know a straight version or anything, but it's a more somewhat grounded
literal.
version than
Yeah,
the Halle Berry like Catwoman, which was just took it up to 12, so I think there's some fun scenes there here and there when she's going back through the apartment, going back through her routine after she's Catwoman and just like knocking shit over and like she's hazy and just like kind of out of it, like all that stuff's kind of fun. um again, I find it somewhat entertaining. I'm not really bored at any time in the movies. There's some fun stuff, but it's the lowest of the four of the 80s, 90s, like that chunk of movies. You know what I mean? Like those four, it's the lowest for me too. So I agree with you there. It's my lowest out of those that chunk of movies.
yeah.
In the same
We'll
way.
call that era 2 Batman.
Yeah, right.
Era 2 Batman. Yeah.
So I'm with you
So,
on that.
and I'm happy at least you don't love it. So now it's time to break your heart, and I will
Okay.
preface this by saying that this might be higher if we were doing just movies, but because
Hmm.
this is a Batman ranking, I have to adjust a little bit. And the
Yeah, I know
reason
what's
is,
coming.
yeah,
I
the
know what's
reason
coming.
is just he's not in the movie as much, and he's not a primary focus, but it's the Snyder Cut.
Okay.
And the reason is I like this movie, but Batman in this is a Batman ranking, and he's not the primary focus. He's not the heart and soul of this, other than the assembly part. You know what I mean? Like he's when there's things that need to be done, he's usually not doing it. I love Ben Affleck's performance as both Bruce and Batman, but just in a 4-hour movie, there's not as much Batman as I would want. And also, just the movie, it just bums me out. Like I said this in my review. I want a 3-hour cut of the Snyder cut. Like now that we know your full vision, now edit that, get 3 hours of that, and fix that aspect ratio. I cannot rewatch this on that aspect ratio. It just gives me anxiety. Like it's weird. Like I'm not a fan. Because this movie is beautiful and it crunches it down, and it's just, I don't know, it bums me out. So I don't have anything negative to really say about this movie. Like I'm not saying it's perfect, but like it's well made, it's fun, it's it's a good time. I wouldn't even say it drags. Like sure, I still want a 3-hour version of this, but I'm not, I'm a decent editor, but like, in terms of what would I take out of this, I don't know. I would have to really like, go through it. But
Mhm.
so I don't have anything specific like, hey, take this out, take that out, X, Y, and Z. And then yeah, everything with Steppenwolf is fun. You know what I mean? He looks decent. He could look better, but he looks decent. I feel like I don't think the CG was bad. I just think his design's a little weird. Like I don't, so it's just
I think the spiky design they did in the Snyder cut version though looks better than the other version. It doesn't look
yeah,
as ugly.
yeah,
At
exactly.
least looks more like armor, and it's cool. Like he's
Yeah,
a little more shiny and polished. But yeah, like, and then they give him more lines. They give him a little more character arc. You know what I mean? A little,
he
like
definitely has
more to do.
characteristics. So I give it
Yeah,
credit
yeah,
for
yeah.
that.
Where
I don't mind.
they give a little story where he's trying to actually impress Darkseid, which is what he's doing. It's all about
Mhm.
impressing, his master and wanting to succeed, for that and redeem himself because he failed,
You can definitely
back in the
tell that
day.
this was
So yeah.
pre-written as a part one. You know what I mean? Like they
Oh
were
yeah,
really
that's
building
what
up
he
to this.
wanted to do. He wanted to do two parts. Yeah, part one, part
Exactly.
two.
Which is
Uh-huh.
ironic because Steppenwolf is still a pretty big hero. Like he literally can just teleport essentially. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
When he's getting the mother boxes, the fight in Themyscira is a lot of fun. Like they're just really, going hard and like really trying to get him, and then everything breaks down. That whole I think it was a flashback with the Green Lantern stuff and all those and
Yeah, yeah,
everything. But
and
yeah,
like Zeus and all those guys. Yeah, like
that's
firing their all their
epic and
lightning and
beautiful
shit.
to look at. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's cool as
Hmm.
shit. The scenes when at the beginning when he recruits Aquaman, just that dynamic. Like
Hmm.
it's ironic watching it now, especially quote unquote it being new, when you
Hmm.
know that Aquaman had already come out, but when this movie was originally made, Aquaman
Right.
hadn't come out. So it's just a weird
Hmm.
like it's a weird Inception type mindset. You're like, wait, how am I supposed to? Like, do I know this character when I'm watching this? Am I being interested? Like, it's weird. So yeah, and then
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe coming back, even though he's not in the original. So that's one of those. You're
Hmm.
like, fuck it. If you're gonna let
Whatever.
me
Yeah.
remake this movie, I'm gonna add some stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's technically cheap, but I like it because I liked everything we
Yeah.
got. You know what I mean?
I
So,
just look at it as most of that Aquaman movie, especially the final battle, is all underwater, so nobody knew what the hell was going on. Nobody witnessed
yeah,
any of that, so like we didn't know what was going on. So when Ben Affleck's meeting him for the first time in that village, he's literally just meeting him for the first time in that village. He's never seen him on
exactly.
land. All that shit happened underwater. So who
Exactly.
knows? He's never seen any of it. So
So
it's
yeah,
this whole other world we don't know about.
so this movie's a lot of fun. It's just I wish it was a little shorter, and I wish that we got a better aspect ratio. So if we can get a ultimate cut of this now, then I'll be happy.
Mhm.
But I don't really have anything negative to say. It's 4 stars and it's this low just because it's a Batman ranking. So I just wanted to justify that. So I know it's gonna be higher for you
Okay.
because I know you're a big fan of this, but that's my reasoning. What's your number
Okay.
9?
So my number 9 is Batman and Robin. Again, this might have been lower a couple of years ago, but man, I watch this movie at least once every 6 months just for the kicks. I think I don't know, and to be fair, this and Batman Forever, which I might talk about very, very shortly.
Yeah.
Batman Forever was the first Batman movie I saw in the theater. I
Okay.
distinctly remember seeing it when I was 9 years old in the theater and having fun with it because you're a 9 year old, you enjoy the neon lights and the flashy stuff and the kind of toyetic nature, like you get all that, and then I go back to the theater 2 years later and I'm still 11 years old, I'm still a kid, watching Batman and Robin, having a good time with it, so I watched these a lot on video, and so it is somewhat of a nostalgic thing, but I've gone to appreciate it more as an adult, again, for that guilty pleasure aspect. I mean, we did a whole tournament fights about guilty pleasure movies, and Batman and Robin won. It won the whole damn thing.
Wow.
So as a guilty pleasure, just watching it, knowing that it's horrendous, but you have a lot of fun with it. I think, and I want to say the overall. I think the overall movie community has also embraced how terrible Batman and Robin is, but how fun
Yeah.
terrible it is, as an anomaly of just like it's so insane. Like from minute one, the fact that they have ice skates on their boots, but they just found out about Mr. Freeze 2 minutes earlier in the Batmobile. How are they prepared for that? I don't know. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. Like you said, George Clooney is, every guy has given their own I'm Batman. Michael Keaton
Yeah.
obviously has the iconic, he holds the guy up his face, I'm Batman. Even Val Kilmer, does the I'm Batman, does a pretty good job. This one he goes, "Hi Freeze, I'm Batman." Just like what? Just like what? From the opening 5 minutes, you're just like, what? Throw all your shit out the window. This movie is not, if you're a hardcore Batman fan, this ain't going to be your shit. But like, if you can enjoy it as a living cartoon, which is what this movie is, even more so than the animated movies, it is a living cartoon, like a live action
Absolutely.
cartoon, then you can have a good time with it. And I will say that's the only reason I rate it higher than some of the other ones is because I can have fun with it while realizing that it's awful. So that's literally my reason for putting it at number 9 is that I have more fun with this one than the other movies on the lower of my ranking. So I can watch this movie, have a couple of beers, and have a really good time. So that's
Hey,
what it is.
I
You
respect
know,
that. Is
yeah.
Batman Forever your number 8, or is that still a little
So
higher?
Forever's number 8. So I'll just go
Okay.
into it real
Yeah.
quick. Yeah. So yeah, Forever's 8. And again, I have it just about Batman and Robin because the serious aspects of Batman Forever are better, obviously, than Batman and Robin. Val Kilmer is a better Batman. Chris O'Donnell's Robin is better in this movie. I even like the stuff where he's acting like a dopey, late teen, 20, whatever he is, he steals the Batmobile and takes it out for chicks. Like, who wouldn't do that if you had access to it, Like, it actually kind of makes sense for his character, he steals the Batmobile and goes out to get girls, fine.
I
And
will.
pretends to be Batman and pretends to be a superhero, beating people up and getting in over his head. All that stuff, but it makes sense. And again, Val Kilmer in some of the dramatic scenes he does, he's okay. He's just trying to play off a really goofy Nicole Kidman in this movie. So I wish he had a more, I don't know, capable, at least in this role, female, to bounce off of, because I think just her character is just so thinly written. It's just she's horned up for Batman, so that's pretty much her whole character, and it's like it just is what it is. Jim Carrey I can have fun with because he's doing Frank Gorshin, like we said earlier, but the Two-Face stuff is almost inexcusable. Like that is not anywhere near an interpretation of that character that should be on the screen, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing everything he does in this movie. So he's the one thing that holds it down from being higher. on personal lists. I saw somebody rank this at like number 1 or 2. I was like, you guys are fucking insane. Like, there's way better movies than this, but
Yeah.
okay, that's fair enough.
Even for nostalgia, yeah, this
Even for nostalgia, because I mean, again, this is the first one I saw in theaters, so you'd think I'd have that nostalgia, but like, and I do somewhat, because I can watch it and be entertained by it and still have a good time with it overall. And like I said, the score I like, even some of the visual stuff is not bad. Like, I like some of the visual aesthetics, but yeah, like, it's got the silly shit from Batman and Robin when it is silly, but it takes itself at least a little more seriously in some moments. So it's a better Batman movie than Batman and Robin. So which is why I have it just a tad higher, but still not super high on the list because there's better Batman movies in my opinion. So
there we go.
yeah.
So my number 8 is actually one that went down. It's gone down on rewatches for one of 2 reasons. One, it is a little too childish, and 2, it doesn't rely on Batman all the way, and it's called the Lego Batman movie. The fact that Warner Brothers does the whole Lego Warner Brothers IP thing a little too much, it's just unnecessary in this movie. Like, you can even include the Justice League because the jokes are funny, whereas hey, Batman wasn't included, and that's fun. So if you're including them for a quote unquote cameo, I'd be cool with that. But the whole all like the Voldemort and all those types of characters, like, it's just not that. The opening scene, like with all the characters,
right,
that heist and Joker doing that, and just the general concept of Joker's like, hey, you're my villain. Oh, I want to see other villains, or I don't want to be committed to one villain. Like that's a fun play on just the concept of like Batman. We don't have Batman without the Joker, and that's even obviously without getting into spoilers yet, but like Joker is he's out there a lot, you know what I mean? So it's like, we can have Batman without Joker, but this movie pokes fun at that. So like a lot of the meta jokes work for me. It's just more the non-Batman stuff. Like you said, it's almost 2 hours long, and there's a lot more non-Batman stuff than you would want from this type of movie. So yeah, it is overly immature with its humor, but the stuff that works. So I still really like it, but I don't love it like I actually did the first time because of I was like, wow, I was taken aback. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I was not expecting this to be so good. Now, the more I watch, I'm like, all right, it's definitely overstated welcome. Yeah. So it's my number 8.
Can the people at least agree with me that the Lego Batman movie or any of these Lego movies should be like a tight 85 minutes? Like,
I would be cool with 90.
You know what I mean?
Minutes, but yeah, it's definitely
but to do an hour and like 50 minutes, it's too goddamn long. And for the kids you're marketing to, it's too long. I think these movies that are specifically marketed for under 12, let's say, you know what I mean, under 10, under 12. These movies, I've had a big problem with lately with a lot of these, family friendly or kids movies just being like pushing 2 hours, which is just too much because a lot of the 90s stuff. Even those Disney 90 movies and in the early Pixar stuff, they knew those movies got to be like a tight 90, 95 minutes. Like, you know what I mean? And you can tell a whole story in that. And
as the days have gotten longer, they've gotten longer. But yes, at that point, they've established like their plan, like the MCU. They have a formula. Whereas this one, they didn't quite have a formula yet, because the reason the Lego movie was a little longer, it's because the twist at the end with the human life. They don't have that type of twist. So that extra 10 minutes isn't as necessary. And I know 10 minutes sounds, meticulous, but it's like I said, there's a lot of like these characters that are just not necessary for a Batman movie.
My go-to, Beauty and the Beast, 1991, nominated for Best Picture, 85 minutes. They told a complete, total story, 85 minutes. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, okay? The Lego Batman movie does not need to be on, an hour and 50 minutes. Okay, that's my one big problem with that. You don't need that movie to be that long. You can make all the jokes. You can tell the complete story, and it just needs to be. And again, I have my Nitpicks movie. I already went to it. I'm not going to do another rant about it. Yeah. I already did that at the top of the show if you missed it. So rewind, go check it out. Go see it again. But yeah. So no, I understand why people like it. I get it. I'm not oblivious to that. I just think I like that character better as a side character in the original Lego movie. That's just my big thing.
All right. So, yeah. Well, go back to Batman as a lead. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is Batman Begins. Batman Begins is number 7. And so, yeah. It's my least favorite of the Nolan trilogy. And I rewatched all of the Nolan trilogy, going back to this. Again, not saying it's bad. Everything from here on is 4 or 5 stars. So just to be fair. So on my 7, 6,
Now the Batman fans
and
really starting to show, right?
yeah, no, for sure. Like these are like the cream of the crop for me. So 7, I'm just looking at my 7, 6, and 5 are at least 4 stars for me. Okay, something like that. So anyway, we're getting into good shit now. The shit I like. So number 7 is not necessarily a knock. It's my lowest of the Nolan trilogy, only because it's very very well done as far as the origin of Bruce Wayne. All the stuff with Ducard and Ra's al Ghul and all that stuff is great. Like him learning to be a ninja is excellently done. I forget how good that stuff is when I go back to it. It's just like I think it's just got kind of my least favorite of the Bale Batmans in this one, if that makes sense. Like I just don't think he kind of nails it in this one, and he does a better job in the sequels. He's still kind of figuring it out in this one, and it has my least favorite of the villains as well. I like Cillian Murphy. I don't think he has enough to do. I would actually like to see more of him doing the Scarecrow thing. I think he only gets like 2 or 3 scenes to really play around with that Scarecrow thing, whereas I've seen just better versions of that, like I said, in those Arkham games, in some of the animated stuff where he really fucks with people, like really gets people messed up on the stuff, and you get to see more of what they see, and really takes them into full on hallucinatory like dream states and stuff. Like it gets really crazy, and this one is just more played of like he sprays it in your face, you go crazy, and they just send you out of the
It's
movie
ironic
for a
that
while.
this is the director of Inception, and you didn't get that yet. You know what I mean? It's like
I wanted more of that. Like I think they could have done more with that concept, and if they lean more into that instead of this kind of goofy plot of them like tainting the water. Like I just that plot gets kind of muddled for me. It's just like, oh, we're like tainting the water supply, and we're gonna like release it and make everybody go crazy. Like I don't know. I feel like it's just not built to a full potential. It just kind of, not that it was like disappointing. I think this one just played the least into my rewatches. Like I just especially the second half of the movie. I think the first half of the movie is way stronger than the second half overall. Like with the early stuff. So that's just me personally. I still love the movie. I give it 5. It's a 4-star movie for me. I could still watch it anytime and get really into it. It's again just my least favorite of the Nolans, and I think that kind of stuff has been done better in other films. So that's all. Yeah, I mean. Batman Begins, I still really like it.
I will say, like, I'm not going to say where it's at yet, but I will say how you describe your feelings on it now is how I felt about it before this last rewatch.
But
so
then,
obviously it's gone up. It's different, but that's where I was. So maybe it just depends on the mood or just where you're at in life or your mindset. But yeah, so my number 7 is where Era 2 stops. Batman 89. The reason that this one is at my 7 is because let me
you mean that one you're wearing the logo of on your T-shirt there?
Yeah, it was I got it from Walmart. All right, it's just what they got.
You mean the Batman logo? Yeah, that's right, for Batman 89. Yeah, still to this day.
So the reason that this one is my second to last 4-star, so spoiler, one more 4-star, is because that I actually like the backstory of Bruce Wayne because it doesn't overdo it. And especially at the time of this being the first time we've really seen it, that the fact that they didn't still throw it in your face, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, all right, told a good story. Like I like the fact that he just went back and he set the roses down. Like those some moments like that. It's like that's what Bruce Wayne did. He would have it to where he's not trying to make a scene. It's just he's doing it for him because it's close to his heart.
Yeah.
His relationship with Alfred, it's not obviously we got spoiled because all the Alfreds later on, with Michael Caine, Jeremy Irons, and even now.
Well, they're more hands-on. This one's literally like the butler who like gives, and he gives him like sagely advice. He's there as a fatherly presence. He's still there. You know what I mean, for him.
He's more like an older uncle / grandpa.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely got spoiled. Where like literally, just for instance, Jeremy Irons is piloting the bat plane remotely. You know what I mean? Like way more hands-on shit.
Yeah, exactly.
With Alfred, but Michael Goff at 75 years old or whatever he is when he made this movie, is not going to do that.
Playing, the
right.
But so it's one of those where because I don't have any nostalgia for it. The first half of this movie is awesome. Like everything you're setting up with Jack Napier. Like, sure, do we need a backstory of Joker, especially the first time we get it? No, but it's telling a story, and I accept it for what it's going to tell because it told a story, and you understand why he's so bitter now because he's already a criminal, and then he gets turned on. So now he's like, oh, now I'm the crime boss of Gotham. You know what I mean? Like essentially that's the reason why he jumped that. So I'm cool with that. So everything, and then obviously Jack Nicholson's, a grade A actor. You know what I mean? Like, is he the Joker? Maybe not, but he's Jack Napier's Joker, so I'm cool with how they approach it. I have no issues with that.
Well, he's the gangster Joker
Yeah.
who like has those ties, and it's his interpretation of this gangster Joker who is actually more psychotic than you think and does just shoot people on a whim and does want to gas the whole fucking city, and go crazy.
Smilex, which I forgot that too.
Right? Yeah, and Smilex. So I wrote that one. Anyways, and technically, don't call me a liar. I wrote 2 plot questions for each of those movies. You just read them out of order. So, and then the other ones were supposed to be bonus. So I followed your instructions to a T. The other ones. The actor ones, the way I just sent him the questions, and I thought he was going to put them in that order, but it's fine. It doesn't. Yeah. Whatever. Anyways, but I had 2 plot questions for each movie, so it was fair.
I just
so no. But yeah, no. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the last thing I'll say, it's like there's just something about you can just tell that they didn't quite have the Batman action hero yet. Like I like the concept of I'm Batman and like all that, but like there's just the Batman is my least favorite part of this movie. Not that it's bad. It's just there's nothing about it that really stands out as like Batman. Like I actually kind of like his Bruce Wayne. I don't know. I just like Michael Keaton. I guess that's really what it is. Like his Bruce Wayne.
Well, Michael Keaton's the man. Like
exactly.
He's great.
Like his Bruce Wayne is fine. His Batman is fine. Yeah. It's just he's Michael Keaton, and so he's cool. And then I like the dynamic between him and Vicky Vale.
Kim Basinger.
Yeah, I really like that storyline, and her being a reporter. And guess what? This is the late '80s, early '90s. Strong, powerful woman. You know what I mean? Like you can tell a story like this, and it like just be a good character. Like we have this. We said this I think on the last episode or the episode before that, where it's like it can be done. Where it's like it's not throwing in your face. You just have a good one. That's a good example of like she's a memorable character. People bring it up 30 years later for a reason because she's a good character. So, like it's one of those where it's like I don't feel like it does anything fantastic other than the score. The score is awesome. The score is definitely fantastic. But other than the score, it doesn't do anything that's like amazing and awesome. But it's really good all throughout. And the opening, you're locked in at the opening, and then it kind of like teeters into the more grandiose Smilex spotlight, which I liked, but it's just the pacing got affected just a little bit. So I started to feel that 2 hours towards the second half. But I really like the movie, and because I don't like this Batman as much, it's the reason why it's my second highest 4-star movie. So that's the reason why it's that.
And I will say that the action aspect that you're talking about, I think literally was just restricted by the times because the suit he was in literally restricted his movement. He couldn't do a whole lot like necessarily, you know what I mean? Like he literally could not do a ton. Like he could do some stuff, but he was restricted by the actual material that they were, they had at the time, the different, because, obviously when they eventually get to like the Bale movies and stuff, they've got ones where he can move around a little bit more, do a little bit more. So I think they were just restricted as far as that. And that Tim Burton's was not necessarily known as an action director, obviously at the time. You know what I mean? So he's more of a character. He's more of a character guy, atmosphere.
And like I said, I think that's why it's more of a knock on Batman Returns. I actually like Gotham, how it's set up in this one with the cops and Gordon. Like Gordon's not the Gordon. Also, we've gotten spoiled with Gordon later on, but like. He's still a fine Gordon, and everything with I don't remember the side cop, but him where he's kind of
Eckhart.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Everything with that, like it sets up Gotham like as a nice thing, and the Billy D. Williams stuff that cock tease.
Well, and even the design of how it's like this Gotham, but it feels kind of timeless because it's like somewhat modern, but there's a couple of older cars. There's like older microphones. Like there's like weird older technology with newer technology all kind of mixed in.
I wouldn't be
like
surprised
that kind of timeless quality.
Based in the 50s, if you told me it was based in the 80s. If this was
it's not because they've got like boom boxes with cassettes, so it's set in modern times, but like they're using like old timey 50s microphones at press conferences. You know what I mean? Like, but Tim Burton's always done that. He does that in Mars Attacks as well, where everybody's using like old military weapons and like old microphones and old tech, but it's like a modern movie. It's strange. But he just kind of likes that stuff. So yeah, that's what he does. But yeah, but this movie's a little bit higher on my list, so I'll talk about it later. So yeah. So my 6, 5, and 4 could switch at any given day. I'll just say that up front. I had a real hard time ranking the 4 or 5. My top 3 are my top 3, hardcore. And then my 4, 5, and 6 on any given day could kind of swap. So what I settled on for today is my number 6 is the Snyder Cut. So 6 is Snyder Cut for me.
Interesting. I thought it would be higher. So
okay. No, again, they could swap in any given day, but for this ranking, I went with Snyder Cut. Okay. And for the reasons you talked about. It's got kind of the least amount of Batman out of these 3. So, but the Batman I still like a lot because I really love Ben Affleck as Batman. I think he does a tremendous job as this kind of more seasoned Batman who's been through some shit that you just kind of have to go with, where we haven't seen necessarily what he's been through, but we know he's been through a lot of shit, and he deals with it. And he's more sagely, but he's got this attitude throughout the movie, especially in the third act, where he's like, you know what? I've done everything I can do as the Batman, and if I die, I die. He takes those leads and those charges in the third act where he's like, even when he first takes the plane, he drops them off, he goes to the missile thing, he's just like, I don't even know if I'm going to survive shooting these missiles and blasting through this thing. He drives right into it, and he's like, you guys go without me, don't wait for me. Like, I might not even make it out of this. You know what I mean? Like, he's settled in as like, I've done my job, doing my part to save the world, even though I'm not a super being, and I brought all these people together. I've done what I needed to do to bring these super people together, which I like. He knows that that's his job, and he's completed his mission as far as that goes. And at this point, if he has to sacrifice himself, he's has to sacrifice himself. So it's not that he has a death wish, but like, he's got that. He's settled in on that, which I like. It's just it's an aspect of a Batman I don't think we've seen a lot of, maybe except for a little bit of the Dark Knight Rises. But yeah, like I just dig all that.
Like a coach, he feels like a coach.
Yeah, I mean,
he's that veteran player who's at the end of his season.
He's the player coach.
I'm going to die on the field. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to play till he can't play anymore, and he's going to be Batman till he can't be Batman anymore, like physically, or if he dies, doing some mission. And he has moments of vulnerability, where he gets in over his head and he's like, oh shit, like when he's getting kind of swarmed on things, and he knows he can't, he doesn't have the superpower, so when his tech runs out, oh shit, I'm kind of screwed. Like, he knows he can't go toe to toe with Steppenwolf or anything like that, or a swarm of parademons. He can fight off 1 or 2 here and there, use the laser guns and kind of fight them off a little bit here and there, but he knows his limitations as well, even though he's a badass. But yeah, like he's, I just like his demeanor, and this movie just expands on all that stuff. And not to get too much into the rest of the movie, because maybe we'll go into it if we ever rank the Snyder movies in general. We can talk more about the general movie as a whole.
More of a better discussion.
A whole movie, but I still I don't really feel the length. I'm engaged on the whole 4 hours the whole time. I was engaged the first time. I was engaged the second time when I rewatched it recently. I think the movie's gorgeous to look at. The score is great. I won't go too much into it, but I still like the Snyder Cut Batman, and I like the fact that we're seeing more of a Batman near the end of his run, as opposed to the kind of in the middle or at the beginning, something like that. I kind of dig that. It works for me.
There you go. Well, I guess we're on the same. If I didn't break your heart as much as I thought I was.
No, I mean, I get it. Not everybody's as into the Snyder Cut as I am. You have to be kind of a Snyder guy, you know what I mean, to be like into it. So, and I get that,
it doesn't feel as Snyder. So in terms of, it was
not
more
as
of a
much
Batman aspect reason. So like,
I'm
gonna let you double up. What's your number 5?
Okay, my number 5 is, again, I had to. 4 and 5 could swap at any given moment. I just settled on Dark Knight Rises for number 5. Again, when I rewatched it, I had this week. I'd forgotten how actually little of Batman we get in that movie, because like he's just the old broken down Bruce Wayne for a good first 30 or 40 minutes of that movie, and then he does his big comeback action scene. Then he fights Bane and gets his back broken. And he's not Batman for a long time again, for like another 45 minutes. And then he kind of comes back for a little bit at the end. So, I mean, I like where he's at. I dig all the stuff where he was only Batman for like a couple of years and he's already got a broken body, where it's like all this stuff that's happened to him just from being Batman for a little bit. And he's hesitant to get back into it. He doesn't feel like it's necessary. And then when he does, he gets in over his head, like almost immediately. There's a new threat that's bigger and better. And he's not ready for it. And I like how he has to literally rise again as this and find his motivation again and find his heart and find his passion again, kind of, and remember why he started in the first place. And again, you know how much I love Bane. I love Bane. Tom Hardy as Bane is so much fun to watch. He steals the entire movie from me. He's great. And he's so awesome. Like he's such a badass. Like I just love the look of him, the feel of him, how they, I'm still down for, even in this new movie's like a more comic-based one with the literal venom and stuff, I'm still down for that.
I don't know. We got some adrenaline. Was that Bane? Was that adrenaline?
Yeah, it was very neon green, so we never know. You know what I mean? It was very neon green for adrenaline, which I haven't seen that in the hospitals when they shoot people with adrenaline. It'd be green, so we'll see. I definitely don't want, monkey work, Bane from Batman and Robin. I don't want that, but I could see a fine medium between the two. And yeah, but I dig this aspect of it. Anne Hathaway is awesome as Catwoman.
Yes.
Like she's a great Catwoman. She's a great Selena. She does burglaries. She is a Catwoman. She has those great little acting moments. When she's.
No one ever told me it was uncrackable.
Yeah, and she does that little head nod. Where she's just like you can see the turn in her face and her head, just like. Like you can see the turn of the character. That's fun. She's a badass. She can hold her own, and yet she's still vulnerable at times. Where she gets scared too of Bane. You should be afraid of him. As I. That sort of thing. Like she knows she's in over her head too. So all that stuff is great. Gordon and Joseph Gordon-Levitt is great. I always forget how good he is in this movie too. He's a lot of fun. He's a nice little spark of energy, that the movie kind of needs.
The only reason people don't give him the credit is because of the tease at the end, and then they just discredit the rest of his character. But
his character he's the one who's like, no, I know we're at peace, but like the Batman, like we need the Batman. The city needs the Batman. I was inspired by the Batman. He tells him that. He's like, I was that guy. And I can see it in your eyes because I related to you. And I like all that stuff with him. I think he's great. I dig The Dark Knight Rises a lot. I mean, we talked about it more on our Nolan episode. I think I had it at like number 3 or 4 out of our Nolan movies. It's pretty high up as far as that goes. So this one, literally, I was ranking it just more as a Batman movie. So it's at number 5, but it doesn't mean I hate it. Like it's great. Like it's my number 5 out of 15. That's pretty good. So
exactly. At the top of or the mid of the love. You know what I mean? Yeah. So.
Yeah, and again, this one and the two kind of around it could switch in any given day, whatever mood I'm in, that sort of thing. So it could go up higher, could go up lower, depending on the day. So, but yeah, Dark Knight Rises, it's great. Like I have nothing really bad to say about my next picks at all. Like I love all my other movies. So
now we're really getting into the fandom.
I'm into the elite, now. So for sure, yeah.
So I will go to my last 4-star, and the reason that this ended up being a 4-star and not a 5-star, even though I don't technically have anything negative to say about it, is just the fact that it is just an extension of the TV show, and that is Batman Mask of Phantasm. I feel like that this one is the opposite of what you're saying with Lego Batman in terms of it needs to be shorter. The Lego Batman, I feel like this one needs to be longer. I really need to extend. I actually like the relationship that builds up between him and Andrea of, their they just have that spark, that romance. So when the one that got away type of deal, because at the time he doesn't realize that she left because she's helping her dad deal with these crime bosses, and he just got caught up in some stuff, and he's just so then now she's on a revenge plot. So yeah, sure, is it obvious? But it is technically a kids movie, so I don't mind. It doesn't need to be the most complex plot. But as long as the writing makes sense, I don't need it to be complex. If it is obvious, that's fine by me, as long as it's it works story wise. And like I said, I like the relationship. I like the backstory of like when they meet and they go on the date and he's practicing his jujitsu, and then they tussle a little bit, and then she flips him over. Like
And she flips him.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like when a female character can be powerful like that, and it doesn't come off as manly, but it also doesn't come off as like girl power. It's more of just I can hold my own, and we can flirt or I can flip you. You want to flirt or you want to get flipped? You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. Like that's some good writing. That's some good character stuff. And honestly, I like everything about the Joker in this movie, but I don't think it's necessary. Like the reason that I don't hate
But boy, without him, I would put this movie at like number 15, to be honest. If he wasn't in the movie at all, this movie would be like dead last, because he's the one thing that like saves the movie for me,
So,
him just being in it. So
I'm like
for me
I'm
personally.
in the middle, so it's like it's to a point where the Batman is beating the whole Valestro crime syndicate, whatever the name is. I forgot. I missed that one too. But
I would have missed that one too, to be fair, even after
Yeah.
watching this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's pretty much like owned them. So they're like, yo, we're
Mhm.
desperate to beat the Batman. We need to essentially outsource the Joker. So it makes sense plot wise ways in it. It's just because it's only 80 minutes long. It's just or 75 minutes, whatever. You know what I mean? It's just we needed a little bit more, a little drawn out. It's like Killing Joke, where it's two halves of the movie, but at least these two halves connect. They're just still is missing something. So it's like I don't have anything negative to say other than I want more. Like if this was 90 minutes, even an extra 15 minutes, that would have connected a little bit from the first half and a little bit the second half. It would have been probably perfect in it within my top 3, because I really do like a lot of the Bruce stuff, because it gives him a lot of humanity, and it really makes him whenever Bruce can have some heart, regardless of the take of the approach and the style, if they have that heart, and you have, because like I said at the very beginning, he's relatable in terms of he's a human. You know what I mean? So if he has his issues of, that's just also why I always like Spider-Man. Like even though he's now a superhuman, he's still a kid. You know what I mean? So I've always been able to connect that, where it's like
Right.
Bruce Wayne is a human, so his issues are more relatable, because that could happen to me. You know, take out the $1 billion, and I can have love issues, I can have parent issues, I can have father figure, butler, daddy issues. You know what I mean? I can have not villains, but like bully issues. Like there's things that can like translate. So Mask and Phantasm's just missing something, just because it's animated, and not because it's animated, but just because it's an extension of the TV series. So
Right.
my number 5 is now going into my 5 stars, and this one finally jumped up to a 5 stars, because this is the first time that I did not hate the third act, and I don't know what changed. It's more of like I kind of got the big picture of let's let Gotham just tear itself apart, because this city is scum, and we're just gonna let it eat each other alive. And Batman Begins. It worked for me, because the first half is awesome, building up the Batman stuff, watching it. So paralleling this with the Batman, like seeing the Batman and seeing like that different take of gadgets and stuff, and then watching this one, I'm like, oh wow, I don't know, there was something that clicking of just like the building up of the Bat Cave, when he went spelunking, and he kind of fell into like, oh, we got a Bat Cave down here. Everything with Lucius, when he's setting up the wings so he can fly, or like glide. You know what I mean? All that stuff's awesome. Everything with the tumbler, you build up into that. Like everything. This movie's just so much fun. Like it's just I just have a blast with this, and it's funny that the reason that he doesn't feel quite like Batman is he's 30. You know what I mean? So he's 30 for the whole movie, even though he's playing like early 20s for kind of the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
But it's also, he was just coming off of The Machinist, so they had him gain all that weight. So he's like really fit, but it's like that dirty bulk. So like you see it in his face. His face is a little puffy, but the rest of him is like buff. Kind of like what he honestly looks what Tom Hardy as Bane would look like if he wasn't wearing the mask. Like if you actually saw Tom Hardy's face, he would look puffy in the face, because he had like a dirty bulk. He's just just also really muscular. So you don't tell as much. But yeah, he's definitely more like tone and fit in The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. But that's not a big deal. It's just one of those where you notice it, where it's like there's something off about it, and that's one of the things where it's like he just doesn't feel like a kid, because he's kind of puffy, and so his 30 is really showing there. But yeah, when he's really faking the I'm the billionaire, philanthropist, playboy thing, like you can tell he's faking it. And this is the first time you ever see it where Alfred's like, he's like, you got to get up, man. crime, and then he's
Yeah.
like, crime doesn't sleep, and he's like, yeah, it does. He's like, yeah, but not till 3 p.m. You got to go show your face, or else people are going to start getting suspicious of why you're not around. You know, this isn't the Batman where you only come out once every 7 years. You're supposed to be around because you're
Yeah.
actually part of
You actually have to go to the board meetings, and you have to go to the boring stuff, and you have to go to the committee or the
because that's the
parties,
reason you
where you
came
have to
back
show
to
your
town.
face. Yeah, right. Yeah, you got to go to the parties with the big wigs, and
Yep.
yeah, you have to do stupid things as Bruce Wayne to keep up
Yeah.
appearances. Yeah, and make headlines, and you just have to do that.
So I
Yeah.
like Rucker Hauer's character in the callback later at the end when Lucius got him back. He's like, oh, you didn't get the memo, and he hit him back with that. Like there's character moments that are just a lot of fun. The relationship Jacquard and Ra's al Ghul, that's just, you know, Liam Neeson's a badass. You know, he's just got that presence about him.
You know what I always say when Christian Bale is fighting him with the swords and stuff on the ice, and I'm just like, man, you don't know you're fucking with a Jedi, are you? You're fighting Qui-Gon, bro. Like you can't draw swords with a Jedi. What's wrong with
you? And you better not steal his daughter.
Yeah,
well,
right.
you tried to later. So
yeah.
that's ironic. So it's a lot of fun. I love the one scene that we get with Falcone. Tom Wilkinson just being super campy with his accent, but it works because there's something about him where when he pulls out the gun, he's like, "I kill you right now in front of all of these cops and the DA, and like no one's gonna bat an eye because this is my town."
Yeah.
And it's like, so even though his accent's a little goofy, he's so menacing that it just works. You know what I mean? Like the writing is better than the performance. I mean, his performance is fine because he's a good actor, but he made a choice. So this movie jumped up for me because it's like this movie reminded me. Well, I'm like, dude, I'm a Batman fan because this just does a lot of like the buildup of the Batman stuff, and it really went there. So that's my number 5, and it's the first time that it's been a 5-star, I think, ever. Like I might have had it as a 5-star one time, then it went down. So I'm like, oh, I hate the third act. Now the third act worked for me because, like I said, I don't know why I never clicked the cleansing of, or like the letting Gotham eat itself alive. That's why it's doing the gas in there. I was like, man, that actually makes a lot of sense of why they're doing it, or at least on the island, and that was cool too. Oh, and the last thing I want to say. This is my favorite fight. Like most people hate it, but I love this Flash fighting style where he's just like going and grabbing him like a claw, and he's just in and out. And it's like, because my only real nitpick of the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rise is the fighting is so stiff in terms of like a lot of elbows and all that stuff. It's like it doesn't take.
Well, that weird stuff, where he like bows up like this, and then he's doing the fight. Yeah,
he does a lot of
360
spins. So in this movie, though, they don't do that. There's not much hand-to-hand combat because it's him just snatching people, and it's actually really cool. And I really like that. I know I've seen a lot of, because a lot of people have been like ranking Batman stuff. A lot of people don't like that, but I love it because I'm like, now you're not getting bogged down on that stuff of is it stiff and is it bad choreography, because there is no choreography. It's just cool, Flash, fighting sequences. So it really worked for me. So yeah, Batman Begins is my number 5, and now we're getting into your last of the mixes.
I would probably, I mean, I might go more like 4.5 on this one. It's probably my last one before the 5s, but it's still pretty up there for me. So I'm going to go specifically with extended BVS. So, because I think it's more of what Snyder wanted to do, obviously. And, just a quick side rant. We just had a 2-hour and 50-minute The Batman. Why the fuck couldn't they let Zack Snyder put out a 2-hour and 50-minute BVS? Like, get out of here. You know what I mean? Like, come on, and smooth polish that movie. Like that just bugs me. As a Snyder fan, that they didn't let him do it, and they shredded like 20-30 minutes off this movie. So, anyways, but whatever. That's a side rant. I'm glad we at least got the version on Blu-ray. So. This movie just to me gets kind of better and better every time I go back to it. I liked it initially, even the theatrical version, but when I saw the full version and it was given a little more time to kind of breathe, I just dug it. It was kind of re-edited. Some of the stuff was put in different orders, which worked. You got to see a little bit more of Gotham early on, because we had never seen Gotham, in this universe. Obviously, it's kind of the first time we dig into that. With it being across the river, it's like a very New York, New Jersey type of thing in this movie. Is kind of the idea. But just from the get-go, getting to see Bruce Wayne, seeing the the Zod Superman battle from a whole nother angle, driving around, doing that
Actually,
kind of
it actually
driving
helped
thing.
my criticism of Man of Steel of like, how are they just going to be reckless and not even acknowledge it? And then they acknowledge it of like, no, there's shit going down there. We don't care about it in this movie, but
Oh
that's not the
yeah,
story.
when you
Yeah,
see it from the ground level and he's
yeah,
driving and every time he turns there's like the thing going up and down and he's trying to make his way to it and then the building collapses but he runs towards the damn building instead of
yep,
everybody running away is great. Like all that stuff is awesome. You get so much with his eyes and that when he's looking up and staring at Superman up there, with those eyes. Like he is like Ben Affleck's on point in this movie. Like
yeah.
I think his character work in this one is great. He really dug into the character. You get so much, like I said, of just him. You get that he's been doing this for like 20 years,
Yeah,
25
he's
years,
a
something
seasoned
like that.
veteran. He's
And he feels like it. He feels like he's pissed off kind of at the end of his rope, that maybe he's made a difference, but not that made that much as much as he wanted to. He lost people on the way. You just get that from the one shot of the Robin costume, that he lost somebody along the way, which has only pissed him off more. And that he just doesn't give a shit anymore. And he's just going to do what he's going to do. And he sees this guy as a threat, and he's gonna try to outsmart him and use his brains over his brawn. So I think the whole sequence where he actually fights him is a lot of fun and really fun to watch and great to look at. That's awesome. Obviously, even people who don't like this movie have to acknowledge that warehouse fight is the shit. Like that fight is like one of the greatest pure Batman action
when he
scenes,
does the
if
thing where
not
he
the
kind of like
greatest one.
clotheslines them, grabs them, and slams them into that crate.
Oh,
Like,
dude.
and
Yeah.
then he
And then he
punches
like
him
he
through the
tosses
wall.
another box with the wire over his head,
Yeah,
slams another guy with the box, then hooks another dude, EMPs all their guns, he's slamming dudes into walls, into the floor, punching guys left and right. I mean, it's awesome. Like I've never seen a choreographed Batman like that
yeah.
ever. And it's amazing. And he is a full on badass mode in this one. Just going all out. And I just dig it, man. Like I just dig the movie in general. Again, I won't talk as much about the movie in general. We'll probably do that more if we do like a Snyder, ranking or whatever, because again, it's another Snyder movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it
I
just
don't think
gets
he
better
gets
and
enough
better every time I
credit.
watch it.
He investigates, and him and like
He's
you said,
doing. He does a lot of detective stuff in this
yeah,
one. Yeah, he's like using his tech. He's like cloning people's phones, and he's like
yep.
figuring out the names of the ships. And he's working. And Alfred's helping him out too, doing some stuff. And
Even
they're
though people
investigating things.
discredit the Lex stuff of like of the metahumans and everything they're going on, he still had to use his detection to find that stuff and send it
Mm-hmm.
to Diana. You know what I mean? Obviously, by the way, this is my number 4 as well. So we're just
Oh,
both
okay, nice.
yeah. So
All right.
and also the Ultimate Edition, obviously. So yeah, it's one of those where it's like, dude, everything in Batman in this movie, like he's got the full picture of Bruce Wayne and Batman because
Mm-hmm.
he's not building up to who Bruce Wayne is going to be. He's full on Bruce Wayne. So it's Ben Affleck Bruce Wayne as if we've already seen it. It's one of those where it's just trusting us. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
we're Bruce Wayne and now we're gonna fight. And I like the fight. I'm sure. Could it be longer? Whatever. That's fine. That's a nitpick. Could it be longer? But you still got a nice 10 minutes of a movie, and it's V Superman is ironic because the actual fight isn't the V. It's the mental battle that they're going
Mm-hmm.
with in the beginning of how they're like leading up to each other. And Superman, this is only in the extended cut where Superman or Clark, when he's supposed to go reporting on the Gotham football team and he actually reporting on the
Mm-hmm.
Batman, he goes to that apartment complex.
Talking to that guy, it's like there's a whole new kind of mean in this guy now. All kind of
Because
that whole
people are like,
sequence
how
is
does he
great.
know about the Batman? Why does he have such beef with the Batman? Because he's talking to the people of Gotham who are afraid of him and they just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because he's doing the
Well,
branding.
and they cut all the stuff out of the brand. They cut all that branding stuff and the jail stuff out of the theatrical one too, which extends about more about how far he's starting to cross the line. He's starting to get a little more crazy and psychotic, a little more sadistic with his character. And you cut all that stuff on the theatrical and just adds so much more to the character in this one
And
as
I
far
also
as where
like
he's
that
at as
Alfred calls him
Batman.
out on it too. Yeah, he definitely calls him out. So it's not even trying to say like, hey, Batman's right with this, or this is the version of Batman. Like, no, this is just what Batman's doing. and the story is going to call him out on it because this is not how Batman should be, but this is how Batman could get in a a scenario like this when you start getting that mental, like you're full out. And yeah, so it's more of the BVS is more of a mental thing for the most of it, because then when you team up, I like the Martha thing because it's one of those things, like, it doesn't sound cheap. It's like, because think about it, I've had this defense for years at this point. If
I defend the scene too, by the way.
Yeah,
I like the Martha scene, but that's again, I know I'm in the minority.
If I'm talking to you and I need you to go save my mom, am I going to go say, "Hey, Austin, can you go save my mom?" What are you going to do with that information? Go save Martha.
Yeah.
At least you have some information to work with. Martha, and then if you know Clark Kent, Martha Kent, because I think he knows he's Clark. Does he know he's Clark Kent? I will. I can't think of it right now.
Yeah. I think he does at that point.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So Martha,
I pretty much think he's figured it out at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're able to use that information. If he just says "save my mom," then it's like, what am I supposed to do with that? But at least he's saying Martha. So then he's like, wait, why'd you say the name? Because in the context, he doesn't know his mom's name is Martha. She's like, why'd you say that name? So he stopped the killing him, and then and then Lois comes in there. That's his mom's name, and it's like, oh shit. And then that finally brought Bruce down.
I think it's also a realization that this alien guy, this powerful guy, has a family, which I don't think he knew at that time. That like he's not just this being that's going around doing whatever.
He's
like
not just some OP alien.
He may have the first ode that he might have grown up here, like as a person. You know what I mean? And he's just like he's just trying to do the right thing or whatever. So yeah, I defend the Martha scene. Like I think it's and look, the fact that both their moms are named Martha, that's on the comic book writers, man. That ain't Zack Snyder's fault. Like that's just lazy writing on the comic book writers' fault.
Like,
he's the first one to call it out.
Movie. Let's talk about it. So my only is not a negative because I actually like all the scenes within it, but I do feel like the Doomsday stuff is just missing something in terms of being the coolest. It feels the most like an MCU third act where it's just a bunch of like explosions and punching and stuff. It's not bad. Like I don't hate it. Just like I don't hate the third acts of the MCU movies. It's just one of those where it's like, all right, if I start looking at my phone at that point because I'm hearing it, I can picture like a bunch of action figures punching each other. But this is the scene that makes me the most disappointed about Wonder Woman's movie as a whole because she's awesome in this movie and her theme, oh my god, that's one of those.
When she shows up and they hit that theme full on, and they kind of alluded to it throughout the movie. Well, you hear it a little bit in the background throughout the movie where it's like, it kind of stretches it out, but then like when they pound it on the first time, dude, like I remember me and my ex, like we saw it in the theater, they started hitting it and we were both just like dum 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 dum, we're just like hell yeah, dude. And she starts, and even just it says so much of the character when she's fighting Doomsday. And she gets like knocked back really hard for the first time, and she like wipes a little blood out of it. But then she like smiles, like, "Oh, I'm finally getting a fight after a long time. I got to fight. Like, I'm ready to roll. Like, let's do this. Like, let's go." And I like that aspect to it, where you can tell she hasn't had a fight in a while. Like, she hasn't really gone to battle in a minute, and she's finally got like a worthy foe. So like that's fun. And she's a
literal goddess. You know what I mean? Like this is the first time she's. I mean, that's what Doomsday is. Doomsday is a god killer. So it's like it was made to kill Superman essentially, but Diana is that too. So it's one of those where it's like, okay, this is cool, and it's this is why Zack Snyder. I feel like Zack Snyder could have gotten a little more of this in his Justice League, but in the scene when they were like, "She with you?" No, I thought she was with you. It's just one of those like. Damn, I wasn't expecting all that. You know what I mean? It's just cool. Where it's just like a little bit of moment before we get into the real actions. Like it's just a character thing where they're just having a lot of fun, dude. I really love this movie, and I always have ever since
I just think it's a fun movie, and I think this movie is aging better than people get it credit for. I think it's aging better than a lot of the MCU movies, honestly, that have kind of gotten stale over the years.
Everyone goes back and watches the Ultimate Cut, at least say it's gone up, regardless of how much and how high. It's always gone up. So the fact that I've been on the Ultimate Edition for years since 2016. Out. I've been on it for 6 years at this point, so I've been a fan of it for a long time. So yeah.
You know me. I told you I'm a Snyder guy. I've been a fan of it too. Like since the get go. Like I'm a fan of this. Like I'm big on BVS especially. So and Man of Steel too. So yeah, I've always been a fan. I love Man of Steel. We'll talk about that when we do Superman.
I'll give it another chance when we do that. But that's
I adore Man of Steel. But anyways, we'll leave it at that. But that's cool. We at least have one crossover. Number 4. So,
well, that's happened. There's 2 more
Yeah,
movies we haven't talked about, both of us, so we might have more crossover. So
we'll see. Yeah.
I will go to my number 3 because you've already talked about it, and it is The Dark
Hmm.
Knight Rises.
Yeah.
This
I
is a
kind of knew that
movie
was
that
coming.
I have just always been this is my nostalgia technically, not because I was young, but this is my, first time in theaters. Just
Mm.
watched it a bunch of times. I'm a huge Tom Hardy fan in general, but Tom Hardy as Bane, just as a buff, bodybuilder looking villain, like you just
Hmm.
don't get that often or ever. You know what I mean? So it's one of those where it's like, I'm cool with it. So I'm actually gonna like defend a lot of the nitpicks that I hear all the time, like, oh, how did he, save his back after it was broken? All right. It never actually said he had a broken back. It just said that I broke the bat. And then he's like, your back's fucked up, essentially, what that guy was saying. So you're just gonna stand here until it pretty much
Well,
gets
he
back.
could have had he just a misplaced vertebra, where
Yeah,
it doesn't mean necessarily his spine was snapped completely in
exactly.
half. You know what I mean?
It's
He could have
just because in the comics
he
he
could have
broke the
hit
bat.
it,
Yeah,
and he broke a couple of individual vertebrae, like in his lower back. Which
yeah.
will still mess you up. You won't be able to walk around, but
And
like you're not
obviously,
completely
in
paralyzed or
in
anything.
this in
Yeah.
the second half, he still is. He's not all there, like you mentioned earlier. Yeah, he's
No.
not all fully back. He still need. That's why he needs Catwoman to team up and Talia for a little bit.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I've always defended that. I'm like, it never actually says like it's fully broken. Just because in the comics it was broken, so you're just doing the 1-for-1. It's just doing that storyline of how he
Hmm.
defeated Batman. I broke the bat. And then just does the back thing. So I've always defended that. The one thing where he gets back to Gotham, it never said like when he left there, it never said it was within a week or a day or a couple hours. So he got
Hmm.
back, and it just happened to be the day of. Because guess what? We need to have a movie, so it's
Well,
more.
the movie itself, it's when we cut back to Gotham, it's snowing. It's been a few
Yeah,
months.
exactly. And
Like
I
there's been time. Like
it's
time has
people
passed.
audiences are
Yeah.
like, I don't need everything explained to me. But then if a movie doesn't explain it to you, you automatically
Hmm.
assume the opposite, or you know what I mean. It's like it just said it's
They're
been some time.
clearly playing. There's a football game which assumes it's like August, September, right? Like
Yeah,
start of like football season,
because
and
it
then when
wasn't
they finally
snowing in
get back,
Gotham, and that's
when
in
they
that
got
game.
back to Gotham, it's middle of snowing, so it's at least December, January, February,
Yeah,
something like that. And he said the bomb would explode in 6 months. That's what he
yeah,
says in the movie. That like it
exactly.
has a 6 month timer or whatever. Like
So you have
it'll
6
break
months of his
down.
back to heal and for him to travel.
Hmm.
So there's you combine that. So
Yeah,
he
there you
can
go.
heal up, and he's not. It never said he's
Hmm.
100%. So I've always defended that. I'm like, I feel like those are criticisms that people heard one person say on the internet because
Hmm.
they didn't pay attention, and then everyone's just ran with it. Because that's the one thing where it's like if you watch every review of this movie when it first came out, A plus, 10 out of 10, best movie ever. It's so great. And then you hear them now, everyone's like, it's gone down, and they're just going on these nitpicks. I'm like, you guys are just not understanding, like, hey, just because one person said it doesn't mean you have to say it. So those have been my two
Hmm.
biggest things. The one thing I will admit, which it's only for a second, so it doesn't matter, but the Talia death scene is definitely cringe, but it's only a millisecond. That doesn't in a two in a
Yeah,
two
right.
hour 40-minute movie. Who cares? But I will admit that one that criticism is right. But yeah, the rest of the stuff, the opening scene, it's not as good as the Dark Knight one, but it's real close. It's
But the
just that
fact that
opening scene in the
it's
plane.
two real planes and all that
Yeah,
shit is real, like it's still damn impressive, man. It
exactly.
is
And
damn
and it and
impressive. Yeah.
it's the more quotable. You know what I mean? That entire scene. He's
Mhm.
like, oh, at least you can talk. No one who cared who I was before I put on the mask. And he's like, you're a
Yeah.
big guy for you, and everyone memes that because it is funny in the context
Mhm.
of like the internet, but for the context of that story too, it's good. And he's like, one would wonder why you'd shoot a man before throwing him out of a
Throwing out
plane.
of a plane. Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like
It
Bane
would
is
be
he's so
extremely
smart.
painful for
Exactly. He's so
you.
smart. And that's another thing where
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't throw it in your face. It's not saying, oh, I'm a PhD. You know what I mean? But it's also he is so smart. And then everything
Mhm.
with Bruce and being retired and taking the fall for Harvey Dent. Because guess what? At the end of I don't remember if now I'm mixed up. I don't know if it's the end of Dark Knight or the end of Batman Begins. It's like I'm just who Gotham needs me to be. And guess what?
No, that's the end
People,
of Dark Knight because
yeah,
they put the blame on him when
yeah,
Harvey is going after the cops and he's killing
yep,
those cops at Dark Knight when he's killing he kills the guy in the bar and he
yep,
goes out he doesn't kill Martinez but he goes after Martinez or Ramirez or whatever and he goes after Eric Roberts all that stuff like he says I can take the blame I can put the heat that I killed those cops I went on a rampage like I killed Harvey Dent you know what I mean like I did that and that's why he's been in hiding for 8 years because it's like he's a wanted man. He would be Gotham's most wanted at that point for being a cop killer. So he can't come out and be the Batman because he would be arrested on site or shot on site or whatever. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He would be
And
the Gotham's most wanted guy.
and also, so one complaint that I've heard, one guy I follow, Cody Leach. I like everything he says and I like his opinions on stuff. But the one where he's like, why don't they just blame it on the Joker? They wrote the script after the fact, so they can't blame on the Joker because you need to involve the Joker because you have to, or so you have the Batman storyline of the blame on the Batman because now you're saying Harvey Dent, you're holding him at the standard, so it's an arc part of the arc. You know what I mean? So since Heath Ledger's Joker passed away, you just kind of have to write him out of that story. So you take Batman to have the blame, and it worked for me because now put him in retirement. Now without Batman, he's a recluse, and I love the whole thing. It was like, oh, is the nails and pissing in jars and all that stuff that they just
have the Howard Hughes stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. That's just it's so much fun and it's just full of that arc. And so it's one of those where it's like I've just always loved everything about this movie. And you have John Blake just being the orphan growing up, of being the Robin character essentially without being the Robin character full out, and just like it really it's like a build up to why he would be Robin eventually, and in theory, and why just his instincts were to like team up with him and have the Batman's back and know that you're not trash, you're not evil, I don't believe it, like you're cool. And then like I said, everything with Tom Hardy's Bane, dude, he's so smart and he's so powerful, and sure, everyone's like, oh, at the very end he goes out like a punk, but it's like at that point he was so on top. He finally he was so on top of everything in terms of like one step ahead of everybody. Now that he thought he won and Talia took over as captain, he put his guard down and he got fucked up immediately because that's how smart he is. As soon as he becomes vulnerable, you can crush him because that's how strong his guard is, his wall is. So if he puts it down, then it's a metaphor, and I just think people have never got that. So yeah, Dark Knight Rises always worked for me. I actually like the fact that you see Bruce at the end in Florence, because it's one of those where it's like, is that real? Is it not? So it still lets you think about it too, because it's like,
sure.
I mean, if it would have been cool if he didn't show it at all, but it also makes the audience now make that choice, because it's like, oh, I saw him, but like, was that his imagination? I don't know. It just added some imagination.
It's exactly how his fantasy played out. I have this fantasy that I would be sitting at the exact table and see you sitting across from me.
And in the movie, it never said that that's a real scene. That literally could just be his fantasy ending the movie. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? So it's like, and this is the direct movie right after Inception, where was that top? You know what I mean? So let's see it out. So I've never understood that complaint. That's all that goofy stuff. So this movie has always been up there for me, and I've always loved it. And I actually it makes me sad when people have it like not only low, but like as a trash movie. I'm like, you guys just listen to the internet, and it just bums me out. So yeah, Dark Knight Rises has always been my favorite. I can go on for hours, so I love it.
Yeah, right. I think it was number 3 on our Nolan list. Like when we did our Nolan things, I think it was like number 3 for me, behind Dark Knight and Interstellar and Inception or 4, whatever. I don't know. It was in the top 3 or 4. I like it a lot. Yeah, it was definitely top tier. So yeah, for
Speaking
sure.
of top tier,
all right, so
your top
top tier. My top 3. So just to make this clear, these are all 5 stars. I love them all. I love them all to pieces. So I just have to go with my heart on a lot of these. So you know what I mean. So that's where my rankings lie. So number 3 is the Batman, the most recent The Batman. Okay. So yeah, but again, 5 stars. It's fucking incredible. I've watched it 3 times this week. I like it a lot. So yes, The Batman is great, and yeah, just. My last week, when my first showing, man, was I just like absorbed in this world. Like this Gotham that Matt Reeves set up is so unique from the other ones in that it is just like, it's literally the darkest, like physically, but it's also like the scummiest. It's the most crime ridden, the most messed up. But that opening 10-15 minutes, the dynamic he sets up with, I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie is that guy that robs the convenience store at the beginning. Again, we might have to get into a little bit of spoilers in this movie, so just fair note.
I'll put that on there just because. We want to talk about this.
We're gonna have to. Yeah.
Top 3, we have to talk about it. So, go ahead.
All right, spoiler alert. So, going into the movie, so that whole scene, even before he goes and confronts the gang, of just when the guy robs a convenience store and he's got a mask on, so you can't even see his face. and he stops, and you see the helicopter go over, and he sees the spotlight, and he looks at that for a minute, and he hesitates, and then he looks over real slowly at the dark alley, and you don't know if Batman's there. Is he there? Is he not there? Probably not. But just the idea of like, if I run down this alley, am I going to run into a dude that's going to knock me the fuck out and take me to jail? You know what I mean? Like right now, he could be there, you know, hiding in the shadows. And even the narration says, I have to. I'm not hiding in the shadows. I am the shadows. That's the idea. You know, I am the shadow. And when you actually then see the fruition of that with the gang, where he does come out of the shadows just footstep by footstep and slowly reveals himself, like that's a Batman moment. Like that's such a great Batman moment of just like, holy shit, like Matt Reeves gets it. Like I knew within 10 minutes I was like, he gets Batman and he gets this idea. Like everybody has said about this movie, the fact that it's full on detective mode Batman. It's basically a detective movie with some action scenes, you know, sprinkled throughout. We see Batman using his tech, using those contact lenses, using his,
awesome.
you know, his computer, you know, use that stuff was great. When he pulled that out, and I was like, oh, that's Bat tech. That's what a billionaire should be developing, you know, contact lens glasses. You know, those are great. And that's why you also see, like, you get that after that, why he's going around so methodically staring at everything and all the crime scenes, like looking real slow and like slow pans and looking in, you know, he's making sure he gets shots of everything for later. But it's also works for the Batman, and his relationship with Gordon is great. How they're literally partners in this movie, like they are full on partners.
They've established their 2-year relationship without setting it up. It's just trust us. We already have this pre-established relationship, you know. And even later, he's like, "Do you trust me?" He's like, "You don't trust me?" He's like, you know, I've known you for 2 years. I don't even know who you are. You know what I mean? Like,
well, but later on, he goes, you know, who do you trust? He goes, I only trust you. Like, like at this point, I don't trust anybody because of what you revealed. Like, damn near everybody's on the take, and it's like, I only trust you. But you set up so much just with that one crime scene thing. You set up that the cops are still leery of him. Man, he's a vigilante. You know, what do you wait? Let's go. You know, it's a crime scene. Like, who's this guy? You know, he ain't deputized. You know, he's with me. Whatever. All that stuff is good. The action when we do get it, I think, is still well done. It's Batman who's not perfect. He's not perfect. He makes mistakes. He gets shot at multiple times in the movie. Yeah. And he gets guys get shots in on him as far as literal shots, punches, whatever, you know, shots with baseball bats. Like he gets hurt. He's not full on stealthy Batman yet, who's perfect and doesn't get hit. Pattinson's, you know, what can be said? He's awesome. Like he nails it. 90% of this movie, he's Batman. You know, 10% of this movie, he's Bruce Wayne. Even when he's not in the cape and cowl, he's Batman walking around, and he hasn't figured out how to be Bruce Wayne yet. It's what the movie talks about. He's Batman, and Bruce Wayne is the semi disguise that he hasn't figured out yet. You know, how to put on the facade. So, but you know, I won't go on and on.
Riddler has that thing. He's like you, the mask, the Bruce, or at the time, the writing of this was beautiful because it actually makes you think that Riddler knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. It set it up,
and then it pulls the swerve.
But even then, when he's setting it up, he was like, at that point he already admitted he doesn't know Bruce Wayne's Batman. He doesn't know Batman's identity. He was like, you're whoever you are is not you. Batman is who you are. You know
That's who you are. Yes. Just like this is who I am. When I put on my mask, I was able to be me. You know, like it's the same. He's like, we're partners in this. It's great. You know, we did it all together. It's wonderful.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yes, you did. Oh, you didn't figure it out. Oh, you're not as smart as I thought you were. Like all that stuff is great. That whole scene is awesome. That's as good as the interrogation scene in Dark Knight. Like I think it's almost as good as that scene. Like that scene's fantastic.
Because he's great. At that point, it's a recap of what we've been building up for, and like now you're getting in the psychosis of who the Riddler is and like everything that he's doing. Because like it's the like the whole scene when the first snap, he's like, oh, it's not going as planned, because he's so similar to what I was just talking about with Bane. As soon as he puts his wall down, because he's already 2 steps ahead, his real side shows, his vulnerability shows. So now his
it's supposed to be different.
It's like, oh shit, I don't know what to do now. Like this is and then you know, and then he was like, oh, we sure supposed to watch it together. And then he got the edge up again on Batman, because Batman's like, what are you talking about? Oh, you're not as smart as I thought you were. Because now he's able to he's able to flip it back. He's like, oh shit, now I'm back on top. You know what I mean? And then when he's actually doing the explosions, and it just cuts over to Riddler, boom, and he's just going crazy. I'm like, that's he's watching his prize, or even the silhouette when he's at the funeral and he's just standing up there. Oh my God, that was just a beautiful shot. Because the world's greatest detective knew that he was probably going to be there, and guess what? God damn it, he was right. It also has two different characters that like could have been, because it's like, obviously us as fans, we knew Paul Dano was the Riddler because he was cast, but like based on the story, the one guy who tried to sneak in, they pushed him back. Batman's like, or Bruce was like, let me just watch him. You know what I mean? Because maybe he has the eye things in, maybe don't. We're not using, but you never know. So he's like watching, and then when he sees that guy, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, they got what he deserved," because my daughter. And he's looking, he's like,
right.
Who are you? You know what I mean? And it's just like, and I love just the different layers of the renewal thing of everything. I'm cool. I actually really like how it ties in Thomas Wayne, because it flips of what we're used to of Thomas Wayne being perfect. I mean, he's not. No one's perfect. It's not, and it never says he's a bad guy, and that's why the
no, and that's why the scene with Andy Serkis is so great in the hospital, because he's got this notion of what Falcone told him. Obviously, kind of putting his own spin on it, but like him going, no, like he just made a small error in judgment, and he regretted it almost immediately. Like once he found out that something bad was going to happen, like he said, no, I'm going to confess everything. It's weighing on my conscience. Like I can't do that. And that's why he was killed. It's great. Like that whole thing was awesome. Yeah, you get so much from his relationship with Andy Serkis just through the little moments of just like, you're not my father. He's like, yes, I'm well aware of that. And you feel he kind of wants to smack him at that point, like boy, I swear to God, if you pop off to me again, like just because you put this little mask on.
That could have seemed as bratty, but as soon as Alfred goes up and he looks and it was right as he was doing the memory of seeing the kid, it's like, yeah, of course that's how he's feeling right now. He's just literally just essentially remembering his parents dying. You know what I mean? And that's how you do that type of scene. You remind the audience subtly of what this character's been through. And by the way, this is my number 2, so I just figured out that's why I'm going.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it's one of those, dude. Like I've seen it 4 times. The 3 hours does not bother me. I watched it today too, because I got done with work early. So I'm like, I'm gonna watch it today at like an early showing, and I'm just gonna watch my clock and like do like check-ins to see like, hey, where we're at what time, and like how do I feel? So
at the hour mark, at the 2 hour mark, whatever. Yeah.
So the first time, so you got the first less than 5 minutes with the Riddler scene, which I love how it opens up. You're like, when you get the POV behind the mask, you're assuming it's Batman, and then you see the little boy, and then you're like, wait, is this like a backstory thing?
Is this the origin thing? Yeah. Is this the origin story again? Are they doing the
now,
Batman?
And then once you realize that is the Riddler, because obviously that's not the Batman, you're actually like, wait, does the Riddler have something to do with Bruce's parents dying? Oh God, that's cheap. And then it's this whole thing, and then the thing when the TV flickers, and then he's just back there and he's creepy. And I love that the first time I watched it, this didn't click, because I was like, oh, all his kills are kind of lame, like his physical kills are kind of lame. But then at the very end, he's like, I'm not powerful. This is where my strength is, up here. So all of his kills are like, hurry up and let me just start, like, I have to like crush you and kill you, and like pretty much like an ape, like a Neanderthal. Like that's the best I can do. Otherwise, I'm not going to beat you. I have to come up from behind you and smack you over the head.
I have to get you within the first 2 shots, and literally anybody could probably take advantage of me and fight back. You know what I mean? Like even Peter Sarsgaard could probably fight back if he didn't, get him good the first time. Yeah, it's like anybody can get the physical advantage of him. That's why he has to use his brain. Like he's not Bane. Like he's not. He's just a guy, and you had to come on, me and you as Saw fans, you had to love the Saw influence on this movie. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. You know how much we're Saw fans.
Yep, the rat trap, and then the mask. And then I just love how that scene plays out. Oh, yeah, so let me keep going into my time thing. So that's the first 20 minutes of everything. That's the first Batman thing. It's literally 20 minutes. It's the Riddler, and then it's the thing that you're talking about of In the Shadows. I love the narration. I love the voiceover because it had the noir feel. But then you show it's him writing his journal, because it's like, yo, I can't get lost. I need to, like, track all this down, because that's the detective in him. Like he's literally, that's the first showcase him to be detective is him taking his notes, and then him doing the walkthrough at Mitchell's house, and then so that's at that 20-minute mark, and then you establish who Catwoman is and the Penguin. So you have that scene when he goes investigates that stuff, and then at that point that's about 45 minutes, and then you get the in the club scene in the 46, the 44.
The 44 below or whatever it's called. Yeah,
44,
something like that.
44, 44, 45, 46, something like that. And then the other one's the Iceberg Lounge. I want to remember that for future trivia. So I want to manifest that.
I think it's 44 below and Iceberg Lounge,
Yeah,
I believe.
Iceberg Lounge and 44
Yeah.
below. But anyway, so you have all that, and then you have the scene with the DA, and then that's about the hour mark, the hour 10, and then it leads up to the chase scene, and then that's almost directly in the middle, the penguin chase scene, which is fantastic, dude. So I didn't want to spoil it earlier because I didn't know how. Now that we're talking spoilers, the scene earlier when we're talking about BVS of the Wonder Woman scene, and when he starts the Batmobile,
fires that baby up, dude. I saw it in the Regal RPX theater, which is not like a super huge screen, but they've got a beefed up sound system, like almost like an IMAX level sound system. That whole sequence, like the theater shakes, like it's like boom, 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 and I was just like, oh shit! I was like, that's how you make even a less impressive visual Batmobile, but an intimidating Batmobile.
Yep.
And it's like a 4, phase firing up of his Batmobile. Like it's dope. Like that, it's awesome. It's great.
So, and then I'll just quickly do the timestamp because at that point, then you have the interrogation, then you have the revelation of Bruce Wayne, and you're going to kill him, all that stuff. That's around the 2 hour, and then the Falcone stuff, which is about the 2:10, 2:15, and then the final, finale with the Riddler's wrap up. So a lot of people complain like, oh, it feels like it already ended with the Falcone stuff, but yeah, Falcone's not the primary part of the plot. He's just a side part of the plot that has an overarching part of the finale of the Riddler's parts. You know what I mean? Now so the pre-Gotham stuff essentially. You know what I mean? So it all works for me. And then and one nitpick, not a nitpick, but I noticed it not the fourth viewing, but the third viewing. You know when he cuts down the wire and he uses his thing, that whole conversation he has with Catwoman at the end, it's not there. And I love that attention to detail where it just looks like there. So once again, I was watching the Real Rejects thing, and John Humphreys mentioned, he's like, how did you get it back? Did you dig through the water? It's not there. It is not there. Watch closely. You see that it is empty. That is not there, and that is awesome. That is an amazing attention to detail because that's something like even the scene when he does the parachute and then he falls off, and the next scene he's talking to Gordon up top. He's got the cape back on. Sure, I'm cool with him finding another cape or putting another one on. That's cool. But that scene at the very end where he's not putting stuff on. So my only two nitpicks, and they're not nitpicks, but I only have two actual issues with this. The scene, this one's not as bad, but I feel like it could have had more emotion to it in terms of like vulnerability. Is at the funeral when the DA is got the thing to his head, and then Bruce leaves and comes back as Batman. If he either would have not had the makeup on his eyes, or if he just would have clearly had a rush job because he was hurrying up, like, hey, I didn't want to go do this, that would have been awesome. And then there was another one. It was something along those lines where it's like he quickly changed from Batman to not, and it's so minor that's not a big deal because they did the makeup and they did off and on. I feel like it just would have added just a little more vulnerability to it, where it's like, oh yeah, time is an issue, but it's not really a big deal. But literally, those are my only two issues. Like I love this movie. Like the first time I watched it, I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna be real watchable. I watched 4 times. I have a blast every time. I'm starting to quote it now after 4 times. Penguin, he's awesome. And
Dude, well, you need him because he's the one kind of so over the top that it gives it a little bit of levity, like in the movie. And you need those moments like when they're interrogating him and they think they put it all together, kind of like the stuff in Hot Fuzz, when he confronts Timothy Dalton and he thinks he has it all together, but he doesn't. And he's just like, he's just reacting to just like, come on, all right,
show me that,
come on, it's a lot, like. Yeah, it's great. Like he's Colin Farrell. Like I don't know if I go as far as say he stole the movie, but he damn near stole the movie. Like every scene he's in, he's so good.
Excited for a show.
Oh, dude! If you had told me before, they're gonna make like this Penguin mobster show, like before the movie came out, whatever. And then you see the movie and you're like, no, I want to see more of that character. Like he's great. Like I'll watch that dude just conduct like mob meetings. You know what I mean? Like I want to see that, like and see him kind of take over these businesses and stuff. Like it's great. No, he kills it. He's awesome. Jeffrey Wright's great. The movie's so good.
Punch me in the face.
Yeah,
like it reminds me of his scene in Game Night when he's acting as the kidnappers or the FBI thing, and he was like, this isn't a game, and he's acting as an actor. You know what I mean? That's oh my god, Jeffrey Wright does that so
Yeah.
great. That was the first. Like I'm a huge game
I'm
night
gonna
fan.
take this key, run to the end of the hall, on the stairs. Yeah, it's great.
That's so much fun. So yes, this
Yeah.
movie is a banger,
It's
and
always the shit. Like I no, again, it's only number three because I think it's just more of a recent thing because it's like I literally just saw it last week. I mean, I've seen it
yeah,
3 times, but like that's all it is. So I just don't have that heart connection to it yet.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's still a 5-star movie. You know what I mean? Like just I literally have almost nothing bad to say about the movie. Like it's incredible. Like I
The reason
highly
I'm willing
recommend it to
to
everybody.
the reason I'm willing
Yeah.
to take the leap, put it to over Dark Knight Rises, which Dark Knight Rises has
Uh-huh.
been so my number 2 Batman for the longest, is because
Right.
I'm a huge Seven fan. And I'm not trying to do the comparison; it's
Mm-hmm.
lame. But the style of this movie, of what it just
It
fits
is.
it's more of a Henry movie
Mm-hmm.
than anything, than even the
Oh
Dark
yeah.
Knight, technically, which obviously is my number 1 at this point. You know what I mean? But this is more of a Henry
Mm-hmm.
movie. It's just the Dark Knight's more memorable, quotable, all that bullshit. Where you know what I mean? So that's the reason. I wouldn't be surprised in 5 years if the Batman jumps to Dark Knight, but right now it's my number 2, and I am confident
Okay.
saying that with this number 4, with this amount of times I've done it. But you only have 2 left. What's your number 2?
So wait a minute. Okay, so do I do my number 2 or do I just reveal my number 1 since it doesn't really matter? Or
I don't
I
know.
don't
You
know.
do it. I revealed
You
my number
know,
1.
because I feel like it's I don't know if you know where I'm gonna go or not. So you
I
know what?
really
I'll just
don't.
jump to my number 1 because we know what your number 1 is.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do
All
the
right.
math, but mine's still a mystery. My number 1 is Batman '89. No joke. It's Batman '89.
Oh my
So yeah. So again, when I prefaced my top 3, I said I have to go with my heart. And this is the one I have watched the most, that I have been entertained the most since I was a kid, that I still love when I rewatch it. I got to see this movie finally in a theater like 3 or 4 years ago on a repertory screening, like a Cinemark Classic thing. It was like the anniversary, I think. I want to say it was 2019 because it would have been the 30th anniversary, so that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. And I saw it in the theater, and this movie gets me more pumped up than any of these movies. Like I like fist pumping, like into the shit, like so many classic things that I've just connected with this movie and have loved since I was young. Like, and I had this movie along with the 90s ones on VHS. I wore this thing out. I watched it all the time.
Yeah, I don't have that.
I have that nostalgia. I know you don't, so I understand. And I understand again. I have to go with my heart on this one.
I
Like if I'm
respect it.
talking about my favorite movies, it's still as good as, and obviously Dark Knight's my number 2. Like you can figure that out. But again, it's my, that's literally the only reason is I have that lifetime connection to this movie almost since I was like 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like I've loved this movie, and I rewatched it again, this week, and like I still was like getting pumped up watching it. You know what I mean? It's just from the opening of like the opening credits, dun, 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 and they kick on the Danny Elfman music. It's still the greatest Batman theme that's ever been put to screen. Like dun, 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 like it's the Batman theme. This movie has my Batmobile. I still think this is the Batmobile. When I think about a Batmobile, like what a Batman would drive, this is the shit. Like this is it. Like it looks like a Batmobile. It drives like a Batmobile. It's dope. I adore Jack Nicholson. I think he's having so much fun in this movie. Like I think he's having a blast. I have a blast every time he's on screen. He steals every scene he's in. And I love Keaton, man, even from the opening scenes, man. Like they look up and he spreads his wings, dude, and they freak the fuck out. And he gets down and he fakes being, hurt when they did. And he comes back up and spreads the wings and he beats the shit out of them. And he holds the guy over the thing and does the I'm Batman. Like, I'm already into it, man. Like, it just brings me back to my childhood. Like, every time I watch this movie, I will say the entire sequence from the art museum when, like, she throws the water in his face, right? And it kind of he gets that creepy look because it's like the half melted, makeup face, which is creepy on its own. But from the point where he drops in from the ceiling and points that gadget at the thing, but it becomes like this this sliding rope thing. The music kicks on. They bust through the door. Which car is yours? The Batmobile reveal. Da, 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 and they hop in the Batmobile and have the chase. Like I am having the most fun, Henry. I'm telling you, I love that shit. I just love it. And the whole thing, and then it gets even better because he hops out, he hits the shields on the Batmobile, and I'm like, motherfucker has shields on his car. That's the shit. And I'm just like, that's awesome. And he fights the dudes in the alley, and he fights that crazy guy with the swords, and then you figure out that he can remote control the Batmobile, and it drives to him like a fucking Tesla. And 30 years before Tesla, that's the shit.
That's true.
And like, and you know, it gets even better. He's flying a bat plane later. Like, I fucking love this movie, dude. I have quoted this movie so much over the years. Like, almost every Jack Nicholson line in this movie is quotable. But I even like Keaton, man. I just like his demeanor as the Batman. Like, all the little things he does were like, you know, the stuff in the Access Chemicals where they're like, hold it right there, and he looks, and there's a guy coming the other way, and he just goes, fuck it, and he throws the smoke bomb, and it's the grappling hook, and he just floats away, you know, and does his thing, and they're just like, what the hell is this guy? Like, all those little Batman moments, as much as he can't do the fighting like the other ones can, I just get so much into this movie, man. It just, the atmosphere works for me. All the characters are just so much fun. I just think this movie's damn entertaining, and it just holds up well. I love what Burton did to it. It's not the most comically or comic book accurate Batman or anything like that. I get that, as a criticism, people who can't get into it as much. But god damn it, if I don't love this movie, Henry, I just love it to pieces, and I just dig it so much. So I have to go with my heart, and Batman '89 is my favorite.
Yeah, like I said, I really don't have any real issues with the movie. It's more of like, I don't have the nostalgia and that long.
See, I do. So I have to be honest with myself, because I do, and again, there's nothing wrong with The Dark Knight. It's a fucking incredible movie. Like, it's my number 2. You know, aesthetically speaking, it's the best movie. Like, it still is, and is the greatest. But if I'm going with my, we rank these as our favorites. It's my favorite other thing. Like, I have to say, like, Batman '89 is still the one that I will go to and point at and be like, this is a Batman movie. Like, this is it, for me, like, just everything about it just works. So, yeah, I mean, you can nitpick it to death. I get it, but it's not as tight a movie as the other ones, but I still I love it to pieces. So
I totally respect that. So yeah, like I said, I have no issues with it, but so obviously you already hinted at it. My number 1, and
it's your Dark Knight, of course. Yeah.
What do we always say on these? Oh, it's the cliche one. I mean, they're
but again, it's like the Pulp Fiction, like, but yeah, because it fucking is, it just is.
Sometimes there's just an answer.
There's just an answer. There's a correct answer. And but again, to me, if we were doing a battleground match and it said, what's the best Batman movie? See, I could see somebody arguing Dark Knight. Somebody could argue the Batman. I could argue Batman '89. Like, I feel like I could passionately argue Batman '89, for what it did for the Batman movies. But yeah, but I'm sorry, it's your number 1. You talk about, I mean, we'll both talk about it, obviously, but you go ahead.
So, so the difference of like where like the Dark Knight and the Batman compare in terms of like my love for them, because right now they're like, I have a feeling the Batman's going to be in my top 100 by the time I do my iteration at the end of the year.
The fact that it's in the conversation with the Dark Knight is an achievement in itself.
Exactly.
And let's just put it that way.
And it's not a rehash difference too.
It doesn't necessarily have to be better. The fact that it's in the conversation and it maybe is as good, or it's at least in the top, and that you can make an argument is an achievement of what they did and how different they made it and how unique it is and how good it is in that interpretation. So just say, it doesn't always have to be better than the Dark. Not everything has to be as good as or better than Dark Knight. It doesn't have to be an amazing movie. It just doesn't. I'm tired of that argument. Just like, was it as good as the Dark Knight? Well, does it have to be? If it's half as good as the Dark Knight, it's a fucking good movie. If it's even half as good. So yeah.
The reason the Dark Knight, it's one of those where obviously the longevity. So like, I'm thinking of quotes. I can just quote it for days. So that's big for me, because I just love like the concept of quotes. So like, I feel like that's what separates by a large margin as of right now with the Batman. But it's one of those where it's like, it just goes like, it has a story and it knows what it's doing. It sets up the Joker as just a crime. Is not even a crime boss, just more of just a villain of anarchy. You know what I mean? He's not even anti-Gotham. He's not anti-regular people. He just doesn't like the norms. He's like, all you care about is money. Like when he's talking to the villains and everything. So it's like it's one of those where it's like he's getting in the head of everybody. He's gonna find your weakness and he's gonna exploit it. So so obviously the Joker just tells itself. But I want to go with the Batman, because that's people's criticism nowadays, because now it's become the cool thing to like criticize The Dark Knight. So everything that starts off with Batman, guess what? You already set up that Batman is an inspiring figure because you have all these copycats. It sets that up. At that point, the world, Gotham knows Batman, and people want to be just like him. And even Michael Alfred jokes him. He's like, "Oh, maybe you could take a day off." Oh, Batman has no days off. You know what I mean? And then obviously the joke of "I'm not wearing hockey pads." You know what I mean? It's one of those where he's like, "That's the difference between you and me. That's what makes Bruce Wayne Batman, is because especially in this world, he literally has trained like on screen, like you actually seen him become that. So in The Dark Knight, he is a veteran. He's at the peak of Batman. He does the detection when he does the thing with when he finds the bullet in the wall and everything, and it's not even him like just snap, now we're doing it. It's actually him cutting it out and looking like it's just because it's not in your face that he's a detective. It knows that Batman's a detective. It's just not trying to throw it in your face. You know what I mean? Sure, Gotham could be dirtier, but the world that we have in Gotham is still about anarchy, because guess what? Batman is cleaning the house. You know what I mean? It's the villain. It literally has a line. It established that. I know why you have your little group therapy sessions in broad daylight. You know what I mean?
Man, yeah.
It literally that's the reason that Gotham is so clean.
You know what line I quote all the time? Just as a quick side note, Henry, talking about quotes. If you're good at something, never do it for free. I say that all the time. I say that all the time.
So, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, literally, it's so true. Like if you're good at something, never do it for free. And then you know, he's like, I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. Ta-da, it's gone. He's like, and then it's like, he's like dead. All right, that's 500. How about a lot?
Even though we know in real life Michael Jai White would beat the shit out of Heath Ledger, but that's a whole other issue.
He would beat the shit out of the Joker. Out of Heath Ledger, but is he beating the shit out of the Joker? Joker's smarter, so yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
In a straight up fight, I'm sorry, Michael Jai White would beat the shit out of the Joker. Sorry, in a straight up fight. That's all I'm saying.
I'll go on a little tangent real quick. Have you ever seen that video with him and Kimbo Slice where he's like,
oh yeah, where we had the hands and then yeah.
So yes, I agree.
Have you seen Blood and Bone and the fight scenes in that movie? He would beat the shit out of the Joker. Sorry, yeah.
So,
but anyways,
everything else with Batman though, it established like he does both. Like he's the billionaire because you know the whole Harvey Dent thing, but he's also teasing him because he's bitter. You know, he hates the fact that he can't have both sides, because at the end of the day he really still is the Batman, even in this movie, because the times where he wants to be Bruce Wayne with Rachel, he can't, because Batman comes first, even though he wants Rachel and Bruce is peeking out.
He believes in Harvey because he wants to retire. He doesn't want to be Batman forever. He says the Batman can't go on forever.
And that's how you write a trilogy. It's already setting up that he wants to retire in movie 2 while still being amazing at it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It knows it has a story in hand, and that's why I also love everything that does in Dark Rises, because it has a story. And so everything with the Joker, just, you know, he's just so smart, and he just crushed it. And then Batman, it's a mental toe. They're not physical, but the highway scene and when they're the chasing and everything that you're going, and you know, obviously, like I said, I'm always gonna go back to Joker's, just some more quotables, so hit me. But even then, when you know Batman has the moment, he's like he's yelled because he wants to like do it, but he can't because it's against his code. You know what I mean? It sets
that's your one rule you're gonna have to break tonight. Yeah, that whole thing.
And one of my favorite scenes when the guy tries to remove the mask and it zaps him. Holy shit, that was so cool. Like I wish they would have stolen that for the Batman, especially in the scene that we got where they tried to do the mask thing. You know what I mean? I wish they would have had that, because that is just so cool. It's like you said with the eye thing in the Batman. You know, he's a billionaire. He's going to have electric shock on his mask. Do not touch that. Take it off.
Well, they did stuff in the animated series too. There's one thing in the Superman Batman Public Enemies, one of the animated movies, where Solomon Grundy tries to pull the mask off and it squirts like gas, you know, like it pops off like this gas capsule, you know, that like knocks him out. It's like, of course, like Bruce Wayne, you know, Batman would have some like a protection against somebody just taking his mask off. Like, of course it would, you know, like it needed to be a shock thing or some gas thing. But yeah, like and the fact that when you look at the movie in a broader context, and that, yes, Joker's the main villain, but it's also a Harvey Dent movie, like overall. Like the actual arc of the movie is more about Harvey, you know, necessarily, and like his arc.
Which is still 45 minutes. I've timed this too, where I'm like, I hate that criticism.
Right.
Just because Two-Face is at the end, Harvey Dent is a pivotal point of the entire movie.
The whole movie.
They were like, but Two-Face is just shoved in there at the last minute. Harvey Dent's in there in the entire thing, which Harvey Harvey Dent is Two-Face. You know what I mean? Like that's fine. And because of the
Well,
art that they have,
he
the whole
shows
point of
before he's
Prejudice-
Two-Face when he gets the guy in the alley and he's interrogating him with the coin he knows is a two-sided coin. That side of him is already out where he's just like, let's do it again. Let's go again. Like he's got that side of him. He just can't show the public. And that's what Batman tells him. You ever show the side of your public, you're through. Like you're done. Like immediately.
You die the hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. It literally says that, and it's like that's the theme. Like essentially that is the theme of this, as vengeance is the theme of the Batman. You live long enough to become the villain, or you die a hero. Those are the only two options in this thing. Like at that point, because guess what? Even though the Batman literally was good, he ended up becoming the villain in Gotham's eyes because he took the fall. You know what I mean? It's so much smarter than people give her credit for. At this point, people take the Dark Knight for granted, and it's just so frustrating because it's like, dude, this movie is fantastic, and it's just become cool to not like it. And it's like, oh, Citizen Kane's the best movie of all time, trash. The Godfather's the best movie of all time, trash. Dark Knight's the best comic book movie of all time, trash. Like, dude, like formulate your own opinion. Don't just be against the norm, guys. So yeah, that's the Dark Knight. At this point, we already talked about our Nolan rank, so we've already talked about it. And then B, who are we to tell everyone how great the Dark Knight is? We love it. It's fantastic. We got to talk about
again, it's my number 2. I saw it 7 times in the theater. Like that should tell you. Like I love this movie. You know what I mean? Like I saw it 6 times in the initial run. Another time when it re-released in IMAX, like 3 months later, it did like a re-release. And then I even think I saw it an 8th time when it just released before Dark Knight Rises came out. I think like they put it out in theaters again for like a week, and I went and saw it again. Like why not? I'd go see it again if they put it in theaters next month. For a week, I'd go watch it again. Like why not? I
would double up that and the Batman for 5.5 hours because fuck it, why not?
Why not? Just give me one 10-minute intermission to stretch my legs and go take a piss and get a beer, and I'm good to go. Yeah, let's roll.
All right, so we did it. We knew this was going to be a long one, but we have no shame. It's Batman. Let's.
But it's also our. To be fair, it's the most movies we've ever ranked in one show. It's 15. So it is what it is.
Yeah. So this is one that I'm actually going to make a separate letterbox thing. I'm actually going to post it on the Facebook so I can actually have people like visually see the compared list. Because now here's the combined list.
Hey.
At number 15.
I know I screwed it up again. Sorry.
It does, as a whole, it's not as bad as you think. It bounced up pretty good. At number 15, Batman: The Killing Joke.
Yeah, I can go with that.
At number 14, Batman Returns.
I'm okay with that.
At number 13, Batman and Robin. At number 12, 2017's Justice League. At number 11, the Lego Batman movie.
Oh, okay.
Into the top 10, Batman, the movie from 1966. At number 9, you want to get nuts? Not yet. Batman Forever. At number 8, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. At number 7, Justice League, the Snyder Cut. Just outside the top 6 or the top 5 at number 6, Batman Begins. Into the number 5, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. At number 4, The Dark Knight Rises. At number 3 on the Let's Rank Batman show, Batman 89. I brought it up, but it's still top 3.
I brought it up. You brought it down. We had to average it out. Well, that was our biggest disparaging. Yeah.
So for the master list, it's still balanced out in the top 3. At number 2,
two's got to be the Batman, right? The
Batman.
Yeah,
and our
Dark
number
Knight,
one Batman movie collectively is
Dark
TDK,
Knight.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So with that said, now we did the Batman. So now we did a long one. So I feel like we owe ourselves to do an easy one next week. What are your thoughts? What's one of your?
So we want to switch back to probably a filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
So I had an idea because I did explore a film that I shared with you that you are fascinated with, a movie called Mother. So and then I watched for the first time, and I didn't share my review, but I shared that I was watching it and a couple little thoughts and a couple of my things that poured out of my brain. So I think he has what, 6 or 7 films, not
Yeah.
too many total. Do we explore a little Darren Aronofsky, and maybe go a little bonkers and go with a little, explore that dude's brain and how he thinks. And
I am totally cool with Darren
are you okay with
Aronofsky.
that?
Yeah, I am cool with that.
Because I got my because I when we were playing around with ideas, that was one that came up, and so I just, me, I went online and I bought the 3 or 4 Blu-rays I needed for it. So I bought Mother, I bought Noah, I bought Black Swan, which I didn't own yet, but I already owned my 4K of Requiem for a Dream. I have The Fountain on Blu-ray already. I have The Wrestler on Blu-ray, things like that. So I think it's 7 movies, something like that, or maybe 8 with Pi. I can't remember what it is total, but still, it's relatively small.
And
And
it's one of those where it's literally, because it's all 7. It's all like thematic stuff, so it's more of like we
mhm.
could really discuss it like mentally how we feel, and instead of like
Yeah.
stuff. So we're really gonna get into like the psychosis of each other. So yeah,
But
7
man,
High,
this
Requiem,
this
Fountain,
this
Wrestler.
this
Yeah,
ranking. All right, just to preview, not gonna just spoil our rankings, but
spoil.
like so 2 or 3 of those I'm pretty set on where they would go. I have not seen Noah since I saw it in the theater, so I'll just say that I have
I've
not
only
gone
seen
back
it
to it.
once. That's the only one that I for sure
Yeah,
want to rewatch. The rest I've either
I
seen
saw it in
recently
the
or
theater.
yeah.
So I saw it in the theater. I have not seen it since then. Same with Black Swan. I saw it in the theater. Have not watched it since then. So
Interesting.
I'm
Only
curious
one.
to go back. I only once, but I remember liking it. I just need to go back and see it again. I have not seen it. Some of these I just haven't seen it since then.
Yeah.
I saw Mother very recently, so I have my thoughts on that. It's very fresh in my mind. It's kind of hard to forget that movie, 2 weeks after you watch it. So. Oh yeah, Requiem I watched pretty recently because like I said, I bought the 4K, so I popped that in once I got it and saw that. I have seen Pi, but man, that one's been like 10 years, so I'd probably have to
It's a
revisit
shorter
that.
one too, so that's not a bad
Yeah, it's a
rewatch.
shorter one. That one's easy, and it's like free everywhere. I think it's like on YouTube and stuff, so
Yeah.
that's easy. And yeah, The Fountain I own. I listen to the soundtrack a lot, the score. I listen to it all the time, but I have not sat down and watched the movie in a long time, so I need to sit down and watch it again. But yeah, this one will be interesting, and none of those movies are the same. That's for damn sure. They're all different.
They're the only thing that is the same is they make you think, but for different reasons.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
right. And there's a few religious themes in some of the later movies that pop up here and there. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I figure maybe we roll on that and see how that goes. So we'll do a smaller, more condensed kind of filmography. A dude who only puts out a movie every really 4 or 5 years, really,
Yeah,
and hasn't put one out since Mother, because it's been 5 years. That was 2017. So he's about due for another movie. But
It's due for another one.
yeah, so unfortunately, I didn't see anything on the horizon for this year, so we might as well just go ahead and do it, and maybe we'll come back around to it if he ever puts out something else. But
I would
yeah,
love
we can
to
jump into
see
it.
Darren Aronofsky make a Superman movie if he was to go studio, because the whole God, he likes the religious God con. I feel like he would really get into that. You know what I mean?
He would get into it, but man, it'd be like Superman. I feel like he would get really.
Or let me
really
rephrase: not a
with it,
Superman
yeah.
movie, a Krypton movie.
Krypton movie. Okay,
A
I could
Jor-El
go with
movie.
that.
I would want to see a
Yeah.
Jor-El Zod movie. That would be all him. So
Okay.
Darren Aronofsky,
Okay.
if you're watching, boom, I got you. Bucks.
Yeah.
All right. So with that said, that
Yeah.
was me and Austin's ranking of the Batman. Well, not the Batman, but Batman.
Well, we talked a lot about the Batman, but yeah,
We did talk a lot
Batman
about
in
the Batman
general.
for good
Yes.
reason. But yeah, so as always, if for some reason you jumped onto this video just because you wanted to hear some conversations about Batman and you're not already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because every week on Wednesdays we do Let's Rank stuff. Obviously, we just talked about Darren Aronofsky next week, and then we have other episodes. We have Saw, Rocky, Nolan, Tarantino, Rambo. We have a bunch of franchises and filmmakers we've done, Del Toro. So check that out. But we also do movie trivia on this channel, and so join the Facebook group over, and There Will Be Movies, because we definitely do signups for there. It's not a set schedule; it's random. It's bar trivia style movie trivia, so it's a lot of fun. But it's definitely less pressure and less stakes. And Austin also has his own channel over on the Movie Hero Network. tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So a couple of shows going on over there. We do tier ranker fights and tournament fights. We just did a tier ranker fights episode last night where we wrapped up our comedy film series. We did our comedy championship. We took the top 10 from each of the decades and threw them into the mix there and did that. And then this Friday, I think we're doing a tournament fights of action heroes. We did a tier ranker. Now we're going to do a tournament and see who comes out on the tournament. So that'll be fun. And then Jacob Barber and I on the same channel, Movie Hero Network, do literally it's called A Podcast About Movies. It's a podcast about movies. And we've made it more of it's just kind of the way it's turned out, more of a recommendation, positive kind of thing where we just talk about movies we like and make recommendations and suggest movies for people to see, movies that don't get, a lot of notice or things. We just did one about sequels, not your typical Godfather 2, Dark Knight, nothing like that. We talked about, just movies, sequels we think just deserve another look or deserve a recommendation, things like that. Just ones we really like that we want to champion. So that's kind of how that show's gone. And it's been a lot of fun. We're having a good time with that too. So yeah.
There you go. All right, so make sure you go ahead check out once you get said the Movie Hero Network for both those.
Is there some kind of war room thing going on Friday that I might have written some stuff for?
Yeah, so that
is a debate show. Oh, okay.
That is something that it's not said so I don't want to fully get it on there. I feel like we got to get the news and cranes that. But I love movie debate over on Movie Battleground TMG Entertainment. You'll see me and Austin both do debates, but I also like to do freeform. Like I said, the movie trivia. I don't necessarily want to make it a league. I just want to make it, hey, show up and debate. Less pressure. You don't want to stress out about it. Obviously, you want to prep a little bit because you want to be prepared for your debate, but you don't want to overdo it. So yes, Austin wrote a full debate match that will be myself, Chad Webb, and Medivh Raymond.
Quick flash of it on the screen. No, you don't get to see it again. No. Sorry.
Judged by Antonio Chavez, Sean Sandberg, and Jake Tato. So it's going to be a blast. So make sure you check that out. That is going to be the most recent. And then me and I feel bad saying this, especially to Austin, but me and Austin have a show, so I don't want to double down. But me and John Mayer are starting next week, a horror podcast where we're going to be talking about horror. We're going to talk about a mainstream horror.
You're going to talk about horror without me?
I know. We already had one. I wanted to be fair.
That's fine. I'll be watching, and if I watch it live, I'll drop some comments in the comment section, the live chat.
Every episode, we're going to have one mainstream horror and then one niche horror that's going to be similar themes. So our first one is The Lost Boys and A Girl Walks Home at Night. And then we're also going to have a fairly new release. Obviously, when we planned this, Texas Chainsaw Massacre just came out, so we're going to be talking about that one because at the time when scheduling got pushed back,
I watched it.
Exactly. So make sure you get on that next week. So with that said, this is where we let's rank stuff. Today was Batman. My name is Henry Confidential. I'm Henry, and that is Austin Pesal.
I'm Biz.
Make sure once again subscribe to this channel, go join the Facebook group because we're just gonna be talking about stuff for the rest of our lives. So thank you very much for this long episode. If you guys made it this far, you're real ones. But hey, if you tuned out 1 minute in, obviously you're not seeing this outro, but it's okay because nobody's perfect. I'm Henry Confidential.